21st at 5:30. We will officially call to order the meeting of the Learning and Teaching Committee. I believe we have no citizens' comments. Is that correct? Okay. So we have a very robust agenda here today with a long but very thorough presentation that's been many months, if not years, in the making. And so we have a lot of people to thank for their action and movement in this direction. We're really excited. Mrs. McCabe and I have had the luxury of being involved pretty much every step of the way, but kudos to everybody who has been involved in this very thorough process. We're very excited to get it going tonight. We do have some logical stops within the presentation that are open for questions from the board, but naturally, if anybody needs to seek clarification on anything throughout the presentation, please do so. And I think without further ado, I will kick it off to you, Dr. Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Kuchert. As I look up at our commitment statement, Together Building Pathways to Excellence, this is a true representation of our commitment statement in action by all of these individuals and a number of other people who aren't here with us tonight. And it rings true with a statement that we've been talking a lot about lately. Together we're better. This presentation and the work behind it, most importantly, was done together, hand in hand, having really hard conversations over many, many months to be able to come to the board tonight with a presentation that I'm incredibly proud of, because I'm incredibly proud of all the people who've spent time and energy putting this work together. So over the past year, the district has deeply engaged in 3 transformative initiatives: strengthening our professional learning communities, improving outcomes for our multilingual Spanish-speaking students, and tonight we're proud to bring forward the third, the high school experience. This evening, the board and our community will see through very thoughtful, strategic, and intentional work that has been woven throughout every layer of this initiative. The high school experience is a comprehensive approach made up of 4 interconnected elements: the academic program guide, college and career planning, time usage, and academic rigor. Together, these components shape a more cohesive, supportive, and ambitious high school journey for all students. I'm excited now to hand it over to Dr. Audra Christensen and Yvette Stahl, who will guide us through tonight's presentation and discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon. We are so excited to be here with you tonight. I think you'll hear everybody say that. It's going to get old. And we're going to start by really focusing in on perhaps where this work started. The idea of the goal, the overarching goal of what we do was really grounding, because we have 4 different large groups of people who came together to think about what that looks like when we manifest it. So the goal set forth to really look for a comprehensive and cohesive 12 to early childhood academic program, how necessary that is to make sure that we're creating those college and career pathways for students, transitioning them into their post-secondary pathway of their choice, was center of everything. As you ground yourself in the objective and key results tonight with us, that first one, enhancing comprehensive college and career planning, you're going to hear from us about new tools, new resources that we've developed in order to support both students and families and even staff in communications around college and career planning, with once again the goal being that we're creating a pathway, some post-secondary pathway for each and every student within our organization. Our second one, where we focus on those multiple rigorous pathways to ensure each student grows, one of the ways we zeroed in on this is to think about what is a pathway really. A pathway is different for every student, but just because it's different for every student doesn't mean that we can't anticipate student needs, that we can't create common pathways, options for students, so that they can start to see themselves in some of the post-secondary pathways that will exist for them after they leave us, but also while they're with us still. And the third one really is around alignment. We had a lot of conversation along the way about aligning what we do. And those components of the high school experience that we've pulled together for you this evening are under that umbrella of aligning. How do we make sure that all of our communications that we engage in are effective? How do we make sure that they reflect what our students need? And how do we also do that for our families who are trying to guide those students in their learning? We, of course, ground ourselves in our core values. I think what you'll see this evening is a strong sense of belonging in the amount of just inclusion of people in this conversation along the way, to make sure that all voices are heard, to make sure that we consider multiple perspectives. The perseverance piece, I mean, at times this work is challenging, very challenging, but I think what we all felt was persevering because we know it's challenging, but because we know it will ultimately benefit our students. And finally, achievement. We feel like this work is the beginning of us being that aspirational district for others in this way, and that was really important to the people that are going to sit in front of you tonight. And we hope you know that that's reflected in our core values and that we see and believe that.
Again, leaning into that together and the excitement. We had over 100 people since July working on the tasks associated with each of the teams. And tonight we have 30 unique presenters that will take an opportunity to share about their work on behalf of themselves, but also on behalf of their team. So the names that you see represented on the screen are those that will be at the table presenting this evening, and they are representatives of their group, some of their teams as large as 28 staff members. So extremely proud of the work that they've done, of their expertise, and the way that all of this has come together cohesively. So at this moment, if I could ask anyone that was involved not only in the presentation, but also in the planning for the presentation and pulling this work together, if you could please stand for a moment and be recognized for your hard work. Thank you very much. As we go through the presentation, you'll notice that everyone has a name card that has their name and their role, as well as the building that they represent, but we'll also take an opportunity for them to introduce themselves at the beginning of their portion of the presentation, because we will be moving through so that each of these 8 groups have the opportunity to share about their work. All of our work directly aligns with each component of each of the strategic priorities. Typically at this time, we would have some bolded and say, these are the ones we're going to really be focusing in on. I'm telling you now, we're focusing in on all of them. But I'm also sharing with you that throughout the presentation, as the groups take their opportunity at the table, they will have a slide that looks suspiciously similar, though not identical to this one, because theirs will be bolded for each of the components that they feel really strongly represents the work, so that we can see that commitment and that connection to our strategic priorities and our strategic plan. The high school experience work has really been inspired by 4 major cases for change. Each of these cases is aligned to the OKRs from the board and district goal related to high school experience. The first 2 cases directly align to OKR number 1, also referred to as enhancing college and career planning. Our students, family, community, and board expect our district to provide increased opportunity relative to the exploration and selection of post-secondary education and careers. So we needed to review and redesign opportunities we provide our students and the way we communicate these opportunities and partnerships with all of our stakeholders.
The second one up there is what we might call maybe a happy coincidence. We are also required to implement the Illinois Post-Secondary and Career Expectations, or PACE framework, by July 1st of this year. And what worked out really nicely is it ended up being very helpful to us. We've been doing that work around the PACE framework for some time. But it's nice how it dovetailed with the work that we were doing alongside that, with our academic program guide, with our conversations about what tools allow for students and families to best plan for post-secondary aspirations as well. So you'll hear from our college and career planning team this evening that will talk a little bit more in specific about the PACE framework.
And then in alignment with OKR 2, also referred to as building multiple rigorous pathways to ensure that each student grows, we needed to review and redesign the way we communicate purpose to our students and families as they align interests and aspirations with coursework, multi-year planning towards their post-secondary goals. When we hear from the academic program guide team later in this presentation, we'll learn about the engaging, aligned, and purposeful resource that they have developed to accomplish this.
A broader and perhaps most important case for change came around many conversations around increasing clarity, tighter alignment, more effective and efficient communication. And I think what you'll notice tonight is we have some amazing educators, we have wonderful counselors, amazing administrators in our buildings that do a lot of really hard work. And they do it sometimes with resources in multiple places, and so we kept front and center that we would very much like to make those jobs easier and more efficient for them as well, so that they can do their good work.
As we engage in this work, we will monitor multiple measures to gauge our effectiveness and impact. These indicators evolve from guidance from the strategic plan, the OKRs from the board and district's high school experience goal, and our collective desire to enhance communication and engagement of our students and families. The first two measures are directly aligned with the success criteria from our strategic plan. The first, as you see, we had 57% of students in the class of 2024 that earned early college credit. They do that through success in our AP courses as well as our dual credit courses. We're looking to increase that number. What we are also looking to do before we set a target, which we will and will likely communicate in June, we want to be able to look at where are we with the class of 2025 before we set that target. For number two, again, from our success criteria, we have 22 students in our district that last year in the class of 2024 earned industry credentials or certification, and that's through the ACE program that is associated with our automotive program. That is the only program right now that has industry credentials associated, but as we continue to look at CCPEs or our endorsed pathways that are approved by the state, we're looking to increase the number of opportunities that we have provided for students to obtain those credentials so that we can not only increase that number, but so that we can also increase their opportunities and their access to successful jobs and wages beyond high school.
So the last three success criteria, I would say we're working from a hypothesis for each of these. So the first being, if we look at our CTE or Career and Technical Education funding, we do get money back that feeds into our CTE programming. And that looks like money for STEM at the elementary level. It looks like feeding back materials into our courses at the high school level, purchasing a 3D printer, whatever it is that we need in order to keep those programs running. This year, for instance, we've received $318,000 to help self-fund some of those programs. So that hypothesis we're working within is if we're creating these pathways, that means we're also becoming more efficient at creating CTE pathways and opportunities for CTE courses within other pathways. So in theory, we would see this money increase over time. If we are being more effective at inserting these into pathways and making them available to students and helping them understand that they are available to them, then we would expect that funding to increase. Number 4 up there is working from that hypothesis of, well, if we do communicate more effectively and efficiently about post-secondary pathways, about career pathways in the future, about the courses that you could be taking within that pathway, then in theory we should be able to judge that we see greater student and family engagement with the college and career planning process overall. We suspect that maybe with the best of intentions, we've had a whole lot of resources in a whole lot of places, which has made it difficult for people maybe to streamline their engagement as a family or even as a student. So we would see this increase as well. You'll hear later in the presentation about a tool that we're recommending to use that can help us track that, starting with that baseline next year. The 5th one is similar. We know that students, whether they explicitly tell us or not, oftentimes have a goal or a plan for a post-secondary pursuit, and no matter what that is, we'd like them to identify it, but we'd also like to make sure that they're realizing it. It's incumbent upon us, if they want to go to a certain university, if they would like to study in a program, if they would like to get a certification, that we help them get to that point as well. So being able to gauge that gosh, if we put these pathways in front of you and give you a way to get there, that you indeed can, and we can check on that over time and see it increase, we are then realizing that we've achieved some level of success for our students as well. Once again, this is something that we can also track starting next year through our new tool with SchooLinks.
This graphic represents the vision for what a successful graduate, what doors are open when a student receives a District 303 diploma, and how that impacts positively their future, not only just upon graduation, but also throughout their lifetime. I'm going to start by talking about the graphic, and I'll share an example of this in practice, and then I'll go ahead and explain the numbers at the top, because that can be distracting, so I promise I will get there. This really represents, it says high school experience, but truly this represents the experience of students pre-K through 12 plus in our system. Our goal as educators and as a system is to get each student to graduation so that they can receive their diploma, and upon receipt of their diploma, they can look at 5 open doors. We haven't closed any of the doors for them. They have access to each of the 5 because they have the academic skills, they have the social emotional skills, they have some specific industry related skills, and they definitely have understanding and interest in careers and in their if they're choosing college, the pursuits associated with that. We know that from the World Economic Forum that this particular age group of individuals will change their career 5 to 7 times over the course of their lifetime, so it is crucial that each of these doors remains open, and that is what a District 303 diploma will provide. Is access to each of these doors at any time into their future. A story that I have, or an example that really sticks out in my mind, is a student when I was principal at North High School that I engaged in a number of conversations with. This particular student was very passionate about welding. In fact, he pursued and was very successful in all of the Fox Valley Career Center welding courses that he had access to through our system. Where he struggled was to really identify why having credits in English or some of the other graduation requirements were as important, because he knew the pathway and he knew exactly, he had it charted out, he showed me on paper exactly what his next steps were going to be and how it was going to get him to success in the career that he chose. So as we talked about the importance of having literacy skills, communication, reading, writing, being able to do mathematics, being able to reason, all of those things being very important, not just to get credit so that you can receive your diploma, but also for success in welding and success beyond that, whatever that success might turn out to be. I'm very pleased to share that that student did accept his diploma across the stage, got to shake his hand as he came down the stairs at graduation. He did go off to Houston, which is where he identified the best welding program to be. He engaged in that program, an apprenticeship, very successful, had a few years in the field of welding, and decided that he was ready to own his own welding business. And so in order to do that, he knew that he needed to kind of walk out of that trades door and walk into one of the 2 doors on the left-hand side as it relates to an institution to get a business degree. So because he needed that in order to successfully obtain his business. And so he did succeed and walked out of one of those doors with a diploma and walked into the career door and owned his own company and has continued to be successful as an owner of a business, which started as his passion and pursuit of that passion in welding. Because he had a diploma from District 303, he had access to all 5 of those doors, and because of the rigor of our programs and because of the commitment and communication about the pathways that he had success well beyond just getting his diploma at St. Charles North, or from St. Charles North High School. I mentioned I was going to talk about the numbers. I'm going to do that now. The numbers at the top, if you were to add them together, you would get 94 and not 100. Acknowledging that. The numbers at the top were populated, their information from our school profiles from each of our 2 comprehensive high schools. That those numbers were generated from the senior exit survey from the class of 2024. 6% of the students were unknown or taking a gap year, and so that is why we have a lapse in 6%. What I think is great about this graphic is it shows us that students from the class of 2024 accessed every one of these doors. as their first choice. We know that many of the students, 86%, as represented in the class of 2024, chose the 2 doors on the left. We know that after they exit that door from the 2 or 4-year institution, that they're going to enter a career door. If someone enters a military door, we know that that 1% of that class of 2024 will exit that door once their service is complete, and they will access one of the other 4 doors that is their choice, because we've left all of those doors open. Really excited. I know we said we were going to say excited a lot, but very excited about this work. And not only did the class of 2024, before we had all of this work completed and all of these pieces in place, did they have access, but the power of our work and the transformation of this work is the way that we're engaging and we're communicating and we're enhancing what we have to offer our students and how we can partner with our families so that we can all best support them so that their children can aspire to achieve whatever their aspiration is as it relates to post-secondary endeavors.
Okay. What you're going to see in front of you is a way that we tried to encapsulate something that is a lengthy evening and a lot of information in a visual way, in a way that can help to prompt your thinking as we move through sort of our agenda this evening. So what you see in front of you are 4 puzzle pieces that have come together under the heading of the high school experience. And the first one you'll hear from tonight, this sounds very much like a Dickens novel all of a sudden. You will be visited by 4 teams this evening. Didn't intend it that way. The first team that will visit you is the Academic Program Guide team. And their guiding question was, how do we communicate learning pathways to students and families? So they are primarily thinking about what it looks like on the user end. What is it students and families are looking for from us, either that we already have and can refine or that we need to add? Next, you'll hear from the College and Career Planning team, who's going to ask the question, how do we prepare and transition students into those post-secondary opportunities? So this is where you'll hear their overall goal for that and the steps that they've taken and will take in order to implement it. Time usage is a team that will visit you as well, and they'll talk about how they'll use the instructional time with students, really under the guise of we need to support them in their college and career plans, and how do we do that? And finally, academic rigor. You'll hear from our curriculum team. We'll talk about how we support academic rigor through a guaranteed and viable curriculum, but more specifically within high school experience, right? So you'll hear from all 4 core areas to get an update on resources that they're bringing to you, insights about where their work has been, so you understand really clearly how that works within the broader context. Everything that you'll hear tonight, if there is a budget attached to it, if there's a recommendation, any money at all, please know that that has already been accounted for in the budget process, so we're bringing you something that we've been thoughtful about, but please feel free to ask questions as well. I know that you've heard this already, but we do welcome your questions. We tried very hard to place sort of holder slides in there for times not just to get your questions, but it's really important to this team as we all worked together. We really value your input as community members, as board members, as family members of those that will use these resources. Please share your insights with us and what and how it feels around seeing some of these new resources and tools for us.
Are you opening the floor presently?
Always.
Okay. I have a couple of questions before we get into the content regarding slides 7 and 8. 2 are specific questions, and one's a more general one. So let me start with this. The goals or the success criteria listed on 7 are all quite general. They read with words like increase, 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 but no size of increase is referenced. So question 1, when will we see the size of increases that you expect to bring back to the board? The second question that is also quite specific is, you talk about the increase in career and technical education, and I loved the example, the illustrative example of one particular student's pathway through the doorways. Can you share at least one example of the career and technical education funding? I'll hold for the third, more philosophical question.
And just to tag on to that, because those were actually close to the 2 questions I had. One was that this is current data. And so the increase was going to be one of my questions, as well as where's the funding coming from, and why would we get an increase in funding? So it kind of ties to what Mr. Lackner said.
And since we're just, asking questions, what I'm going to do is, just to add on to that, no, not at all. Just wanted to say that I do have to leave it at 6:45, so I probably won't get to ask any of my questions, but I read all 82 pages of this, and I am so appreciative. So ahead of time, I'm going to say thank you to everybody in the audience for coming and presenting, and thank you for all your hard work, and thank you as you were.
Let me speak to the funding questions first, if I can. So if it's helpful to give some context around the CTE funding, let me do that. So we do offer CTE courses that are taught by CTE teachers, if you will. And when students participate in our CTE pathways, we actually get allocated a certain amount of funding for when they take one course, we get a little more for when they take two, and then we continue to get that funding for all of the time that they are in high school, so not just a one-time. One of the, as I mentioned, hypotheses we were working under is that if those individual courses are buried in a large course framework, so here's a listing of courses you can take, but aren't necessarily embedded within a pathway for a purpose, that we may actually be missing opportunities for students to embed those. So you may be thinking, if I'm preparing for a four-year college experience in engineering or the like, you may not realize that there are CTE courses that can be embedded within there. And they are actually rich courses. They are hands-on courses that could help prepare you for a STEM career. So by bringing them to the forefront, by making them a part of a pathway, we're actually creating an on-ramp into those courses, which both benefits us financially, to really just to feed back into those courses, mind you. But also, it benefits the student who may have not noticed that buried CTE class that could be like a PLTW type class that could be really beneficial to them as well. So I do know as we talk a little bit more tonight, we are going to look at some specific pathways, and when we get to, we will be sure to use one of those example pathways to talk through that even more. I do want to give you some specifics about those courses, what that actually looks like, and what it means to get that funding and from whom, if that's okay.
I suppose I'll wait. I think the answer is both private foundations and the state. Is that about right?
Yeah, and as I think we've all learned, funding as well.
So the more philosophical question is the relationship to 0.5 on 7, and particularly the two percentages on the left-hand side of slide 8. We have 86% of students who are talking about going to colleges. We have a goal of realization of first choice. It is really troubling to me to look at a chart like 8 and see 66% and not have that 66% broken down more fully, except as referenced in 0.5. It's a challenge when we say four-year institution. The achievement of enrollment in a four-year institution isn't enough. The question is, do students are they able to realize their first choice in post-secondary four-year institutions? We've had a lot of conversation about gateway measures that would allow students to have that first choice, particularly board scores, and I know the state has thrown us a curveball with the switch to ACT. The question when we talk about an increase in student realization of first choice, if we have the absence of gateway measures like movement in board scores, when most of the highly selective colleges expect them and expect really dramatic improvements versus our mean score, then we may mask the fact that simply the opportunity to matriculate into a four-year institution masks the absence of first choice. Take the University of Illinois as an example. If we were to use that as a benchmark, we have a distance to travel in our mean score in order to present that as an option. Now, that's a top 100 university. It would be more instructive for us to look at the percentage of our students who desire and actually achieve a top 100 university, for example, or some other measure of highly selective schools versus simply four-year institution. It's just not fine enough. You can't look at 66% and every other category either in single digits or barely in a score, right? So it's a challenge. So I'd ask the team to look at not only the measures and the distance we expect to travel on slide 7, but I think you owe the board an answer on that 66% and how this program is going to impact those students in that 66% specifically.
If it's helpful to, and I know you will hear more later, one of the tools that we're requesting for consideration tonight, our SchooLinks tool, one of the features that spoke to several of us around truly allowing students to choose a highly selective and rigorous pathway was that students and families, parents have access as well, can choose a university, any university, for instance, to your point about four-year schools, and actually interact with a plan to get to that specific university. So if you wanted to put in Northwestern, and I think some of the conversation around that could be very different at the high school level too. When students are having that conversation and they're working within a tool where they can choose those universities and start to create a pathway or a plan, that becomes a different conversation than just, to your point, I would like to go to a four-year university. No, I would like to go to MIT. And we do send students to MIT. We do send students to Stanford, to Harvard. We have, and I think now we're thinking about what are we putting in front of students who may consider that pathway? What are we giving them to actually have the dialogue?
And I think that tool also empowers our counselors with even more information so that they can counsel and provide direction for students in partnership with families, knowing that that is the aspiration. One of the things I wanted to point out before we move forward is that within your packet, you do have a document that has kind of key terms on it. We're using a lot of acronyms. I noticed that, whether they're on the slides or whether they're coming out in words or in voice. And so just wanted to make sure that you knew that you had that as a reference tool throughout our presentation, but certainly you can always ask if that is kind of unfamiliar or foreign information to you.
At this time, I'd like to invite our participants in the academic program guide planning to come up.
Welcome, everybody.
So as they get settled, you'll see again on our graphic, we're going to highlight this first topic. We're going to talk about the academic program guide, which we affectionately refer to occasionally as the APG. We do like our acronyms in education. We know that when a student visits, for instance, our current course offering booklet, they're looking for more than just choosing a course. They're looking to find themselves within a pathway. And this team that you see in front of you has spent a tremendous amount of time thinking about what that resource would look like for them and how to best assist them with that. These are our committee members, some of which are up here, some of which are not with us, but did really substantial and helpful work. And we're representative of both of our middle schools as well, alongside our high school representatives too. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Hello, my name is Dr. Monica Bailey, and I'm the Associate Director of High School Curriculum.
Good evening, Matt Gill, Assistant Principal for College and Career Readiness at St. Charles East.
I'm Francesca Favero. I'm one of the assistant principals over at Redling Middle School.
Good evening. I'm Katie Gomez. I'm the assistant principal for the College and Career Readiness at St. Charles North.
Hi, my name is Katie Perkins. I am a school counselor at St. Charles East.
Good evening, and I'm Matt Jeffrey, Assistant Principal for Instructional Programs at St. Charles East.
All right, as promised, our slide you will see, each one of our groups start with, so our strategic priorities. The ones that we're choosing to highlight within our group are going to be our purposeful family and community engagement, as well as how we honor the dignity of each student, staff, and family member. So we know that this starts not only, although we're talking about the high school experience, we highlighted the effects and the implications that it has at the middle school as well. With a more user-friendly interface of the academic program guide, we are now able to allow more kids, staff, and parents greater clarity and access to the different opportunities and pathways, along with how to get there, which is often a conversation we have to have at the middle school level. So the academic program guide not only provides clarity, but also is inclusive of multiple pathways for each of our students. This sets our students up for more success from middle school to the high school.
Okay, what you're looking at here are our current resources for academic planning. On the left there, you can see is our course offering book and planning guide, and then on the right there is the course plan by career pathway. So when you look at the course offering book, what you find in there are, it's basically, it's a misnomer, it's a website, and on the website we divide into tabs of information, academic courses, and the appendix. In the information tab, what you can find in there are grading scales, policies, graduation requirements, and recommendations for college admissions, as well as some general scheduling guidelines. The academic courses tab is inclusive of over 250 course descriptions that we offer. And then the academic courses tab also includes the sequence page for each department. And all these courses are divided by or organized into those respective departments. The academic tab also refers to our off-campus opportunities at the Fox Valley Career Center as well as Elgin Community College. Finally, in the appendix, you can find information about our AP Capstone program, Articulated Credit, Blended Learning, and Compass Academy. The companion resource on the right there is the course plans by career pathways. What you find in this spreadsheet is career clusters organized into different pathways that we offer each of our students. So what's found in those pathway documents or each of those tabs on the bottom, you'll find our grade level graduation requirements, you'll find college-bound recommendations, pathway recommended courses, and related electives. You'll also find articulated and dual credit options associated with each of the pathways that are identified, as well as our co-curricular activities that students can join if they want to extend their learning within a particular pathway. So our goal is to integrate these two current resources into one resource, that one resource now being our academic program guide or our APG. So it'll integrate those and we're hoping to then update the content of both and these current resources into that one single resource. We're hoping that this will now function as a more user-friendly way to support our students as well as their parents to purposely select their core and elective classes.
And if that was the before, I guess this is the after. This is the cover of our new academic program guide. And this, just to clarify, is also online. This is an online interactive experience for users that's easy to navigate, that you can move back and forth, and houses all of the information that Matt Gill just shared with you, along with some new information. Some of the overarching criteria was that we consider the student, that we think about the academic interests of not just high school students, but middle school students and how they might potentially use this guide as well. So you'll find as we walk you through some high points within the guide, we tried to provide meaningful guidance to families, to students, middle, high school, even to staff, and to clarify that just because you're on a pathway, there's more to it than that. There are co-curricular activities that are offered within your school that support your interest in that academic pathway. There are post-secondary degrees that are available, and we've tried to put those right in the same two-page spread. So it's sort of a one-stop shop for not just right now, but also later, and maybe even later after that. One of the ways that we have organized the program guide is, yes, we've still carried over much of what Matt just spoke about. So we will still have a departmental progression. If you want to see all of the English courses offered in a progression, that will still be there. We will still have all of the course offerings listed along with the description of those course offerings. But what we're really adding is this big chunk of pathways. So now, if you're not sure where you want to go in the future, perhaps picking a social studies class seems like a really arduous task, right? Like, I'm not sure. Do I take AP European history or not? But when it's within a pathway or it's a recommended or related elective that's rigorous to a pathway, it tends to have perhaps a little more meaning. We're looking for learning with a purpose. So if I'm in an Algebra 2 class, perhaps I'm not seeing right in that moment that Algebra 2 is my future. But perhaps I understand that Algebra 2 possesses really important skills for me in that future pathway that I'm excited to explore.
So to speak a little bit to our process thus far, our process has included an ongoing collaboration between our content area teachers and school counselors to embed our current course offerings into meaningful career pathways. In addition to defining the pathway courses, we're going to be making clear connections to industry certifications, related majors, career-related activities like work-based learning, and related electives. The outcome will be a multi-year program of academic and technical study that prepares our students for a full range of post-secondary options within each career cluster. And again, that's a reference back to our 5 doors. These defined career pathways provide a context for exploring career options at all levels of education and then link student learning to the knowledge and skills needed for future education and employment. Additionally, the team is meeting with a graphic designer, which you already saw the cover page, to create a functional and dynamic resource that is a user-friendly guide for both our students, families, as well as our staff. Our counseling and content area teams have already begun collaborating on defining and connecting our current coursework to these specific pathways. The goal is to finalize all this work by the fall of 2025, and then this would allow us to use this new resource for course selection process for the 26-27 school year.
So as Matt mentioned, the current course offering book is presented in website form, and therefore there is no true table of contents. Our new academic program guide will have a clearly designed and outlined table of contents, which will function as a hub for important information and will support our students, parents, and families as they utilize the academic program guide in a clear and user-friendly manner. The updated APG table of contents will also include features not currently found in our course offering book, such as D303 school information, school counselor contact information, as well as highlighting career clusters, college and career pathway endorsements, and career pathways, which were not part of our previous course offering book. Lastly, as an added feature, at the bottom of every page of the academic program guide will be an easily identifiable tab labeled Table of Contents, which will allow users to toggle between various sections of the APG and the Table of Contents seamlessly. Looking at this slide, you'll see a sample from our current course offering book on the left, showing how course sequences are currently presented. On the right is a preview from the new APG, which will feature a more intentional and clearly organized layout, arranging course sequences into career clusters, college and career pathways, and endorsements, which will help families and students more easily navigate and understand the programs of study that they are interested in.
Worth noting, because although we talk a great deal about this, it occurs to me that we haven't talked to you about this. Where do these sort of categories come from, might be a question that you have. So these originate from the 16 career clusters that are recommended nationally, and then ISB State of Illinois takes them and sort of packages them into what they would call endorsement areas. So what you see in front of you that Katie mentioned, these red headings are those 7 Illinois endorsement areas. We call them clusters. They're really derived from the 16 clusters, but it's essentially a way to package them nicely. One of the reasons we chose to package alongside these endorsement clusters was if I'm a student who perhaps is interested in general in finance and business, right? Oftentimes students have a general interest. Now I can visit the guide and I can see that there are actually many options under that, some of which I may not have considered before. I may have just thought of finance. I might not have realized that marketing might be an option for me. So once again, we're trying to package everything with the user in mind. You'll notice, to be fair, that one of our 7 endorsement areas up there, agriculture, food, and natural resources, we don't currently have a pathway developed quite yet. To be open and honest, we are still developing pathways. We are not done with this work. We're going to be quite busy over the next few months. Many are developed to the credit of the team you see in front of you and also our educators who are not here. But one area that we don't currently have a program for would be the agriculture, food, and natural resources. Some options that could potentially sit there. We could look at potentially a food science program. We'd have to renovate some of our course offerings and offer some new courses around food science perhaps. We might need to upgrade kitchens if we were to think of doing something like that. That tech fits into this area as well. We could look at a plant science. We have many teachers with backgrounds and interests in botany, for instance. It's just a matter of what do we currently have available to us to build out the pathways. The exciting thing about what you see in front of you is that we have courses, active courses, that we're already offering that are rigorous and ready for these areas that you see in front of you. We're also in conversation about a few others. For instance, there are new AP courses that are rolling out at the same time as the APG. There's an AP Business Principles course that should roll out just in time for this as well, so that students will be able to register for it in theory if we approve that in 26-27. There are also 2 new AP courses that are in the cybersecurity area. And those actually can lead to some certifications ahead of time as well. And some nice benefits. So if that were to come into fruition as we anticipate that it would, then it would be incumbent upon us to think about how that fits into a pathway or perhaps create unique pathways around some of those offerings.
Have we started to think about demand for this, right? So like from the student side and from, the community. So obviously the cybersecurity stuff is all the rage right now, right? That's, I think I get 50 ads for that, a day. But I'm curious, what conversations you guys have had about it, because I know then at an administrative level, when we start to look at those pathways, there's potentially, different certifications that we would need to take, get teachers in, right? And, when it comes to the board from a financial decision or anything else, do we want to offer that? Hey, we have this demand, these are the potential options of it. Here's, maybe we can invest further and do some professional education or, find from our staff, if there is an interest. So that's, I know I said a lot in that, but.
Every 2 years, we do a local needs assessment as part of our CTE programming. And so last November of 23, so we'll be due again this fall, we survey all students and parents to look at their needs, and we cross-reference that with the living wage data produced by the state. So they offer spreadsheets of what are high-wage jobs, high-demand jobs. We analyze all of the job field and what are the growing professions. So between our local needs assessment, which goes to our students, last time we sent it grades 6 through 11 to students and parents. We analyze that data and compare it with our partner school districts as well in our region.
Can I ask a question? And if it's the wrong time, say, coming to it. So I don't know what I want to do. I don't have a pathway. I kind of like this, I kind of like that. How does that student
It's
approach
coming.
this? Okay.
It's coming.
That's what I was
It's coming.
thinking.
We'll
I would
press
also-
on.
I would also say, to your credit, Dr. Bailey and I are looking at each other because we literally predicted that question at this point. No joke, it's in the notes. So your question is so well placed.
Yvette and I are both parents, and my sophomore in high school was like, I don't know what I want to do. So I'm living this as well.
One other thing I'd like to add just briefly to Mr. Lentz's question. Often, I think, especially since we know where our students are going, there's a nice opportunity for us to partner with those institutions that we're sending them to, look at graduation rates at certain, for certain majors or career pathways. How are these students doing how are they faring within each of these majors? I know that's something that we looked kind of at the other side of the desk to see whether or not students were prepared for those majors, and then what were they doing in their careers post-graduation. And so it might be a nice opportunity. I think you guys are already working on this as well, as we discussed during our planning committee, but just a nice opportunity for us to start and then even beyond their experience here and kind of reverse engineer some of those programs based off of success rates of our student base.
I think you've been reading my mind. We've started those conversations with several different institutions. One in particular, we met in person at ECC between our media specialists, our LRC directors, and other staff to talk about students who go to ECC. We've also collaborated now with NIU, and we are they are sending individuals to our engineering showcase coming up, and I've been in contact with University of Illinois as well, to look at their course guide and what expectations they have for students. So we are well into that phase about how our students perform in those areas and what they're looking for and what they perceive as strengths and gaps. They are very complimentary of our students, and so we are thrilled that we have that strength that we can continue to build on.
Just to clarify, because we're asking a lot of questions.
I'm like,
And I see that there's a slide.
Into this, yeah, so.
I see a
we're trying
slide
to
that
get to
says
the-
insights from the
That's
board.
where
Is
you'll
that
come
where
to.
you want
We're
us to
close.
ask questions?
We're close.
Okay.
Thank you. So let me set the stage a little bit. The next 3 slides are going to be actual working drafts of the 2-page spread for 3 different representative pathways that we're bringing to you. They are in different stages of development, but we wanted to show you what that looks like, to be in different stages of development and have different features. As you're looking at them, please note a few unique features. And when I say unique, I mean that some of these features we did not find in any of the other program guides from other districts that we looked at. One of those is the tie back to middle school. We were surprised to see that that wasn't common. When we lined up all of the other program guides that we reviewed, we found over, I think it was 101 characteristics, like specific things that those program guides offered that we considered, is this something that we want to offer? We were surprised that middle school wasn't something. And perhaps we'll blaze the trail here now that the PACE framework will be more active in our lives, and 6th, 7th, and 8th graders will be having conversations. So you'll see there's a call out to middle school to let middle school families know here are some courses that align well with this potential pathway. You'll also notice that in addition to pathway courses, related core courses, and graduation requirements, those graduation requirements will be linked to another place in the APG where they can also look at the progression in that department and all of the course descriptions. Then on the right side, you'll see some of the companion information that we're curating. So career-related electives was very important to us. We felt like electives sometimes they're left field, sometimes they're not in that pathway I'm interested in, and that's absolutely fine. But if you're on the fence and you're interested in something that's more related to your career pathway, then here they are. Career-related activities, what clubs are we offering? What activities are we doing? What events are we holding that we can call students in, for instance, in engineering pathways, attention to so that they can engage in those if they so choose? We do have our 4-year university requirements highlighted for students. We also called out specifically potential college programs. And this was a little bit different than we saw in other guides as well. Other guides oftentimes would just name, here is a profession. You can be a biostatistician, right? But it didn't necessarily call out the college programs, and we felt like there was a layer to that that was important as we're starting to educate students around those four-year options or two-year options. Future careers, though not an exhaustive list, and I'm sure it will grow, the more we can put those in front of students, the more they may consider, oh, I didn't really think about being a nuclear engineer, I thought it was only civil, so that we can open up opportunities for conversation around that. And then any related industry credentials or sometimes certifications we wanted to make available too, so that students know they can be working towards those while they're also working towards their other post-secondary plans. The last feature of these, please just note that on the right-hand side, there's always extra information, and you'll see that it's different on each of the three as Dr. Bailey walks us through that, and we'll talk more about it.
One of the reasons we selected engineering as one of our model pathways is because we also want to share our exciting news that this is our first endorsed pathway, which means students can, if they complete the endorsement courses and requirements, can add it to their transcript. We are starting to see more scholarships, more opportunities in colleges that set them aside. For example, the Illinois Manufacturing Association offers scholarships now to students who earn a CCPE acronym on their high school transcript. And so you'll see here that we have asterisked the courses that are required as part of the CCPE. So students can see that there's a lot of choice within the pathway, but there are some required courses. We picked those required courses for a couple of different reasons, but mostly because they contain the team-based challenge that is evaluated but with a partnership in our community. So industry partners come in and interact with our students on a team-based challenge that represents a challenge to the industry. You also see internships will be offered through this, and we have opportunities to earn early college credit. And so our engineering pathway required a lot of creative thinking, but also really thinking about the strengths that we have. All of these are courses that are currently in place. One thing that we struggle with is entry points into the pathway. Even though it says 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, we do not want to close a pathway off for students. We know that 11th grade, sometimes kids are like, wait, I have loved Legos my entire life. I went on this pathway. And they figure it out then. And so we're trying not to close it off. Students can take that Intro to Engineering Design as juniors, and many do. We actually offer that course in 8th grade as well. So students can start this pathway in middle school as indicated, where Yvette shared. And so this was one that we're very proud of, and especially the interdisciplinary nature, showing the connection between our math, our science, and our engineering classes. One other point I want to highlight with the potential college programs, the Associates of Engineering Science at ECC is a direct admit program to the University of Illinois Engineering. And so if a family is looking at cost savings and wants to earn the AES at ECC, as a junior, they can directly transfer straight into engineering at U of I. And that is a partnership and articulated agreement between all community colleges and the University of Illinois, which is unique in our state.
Can I stop you there? Because
Yes.
there's some specific points to be made on that specific program.
Sure.
Talk about a fantastic deal for parents, but not only the completion, but the University of Illinois engineering program is a top 10, usually top 5 engineering program
Correct.
in the world. And so the pathway through for those students who might not have completed some of the things that would get them into the University of Illinois engineering on a direct admit have another pathway. So for an on-ramp, that's a fantastic one. You raise ECC, and when we look at a page like this, and it's true, for example, on the previous page for the other programs, this district sends a lot of kids to college. It sends a lot of kids to a lot of different colleges.
Correct.
One of the interesting things, in the past few graduating classes from North, many students in engineering have gone to Iowa State. It's been
Correct.
a very attractive destination, and Purdue and others. It would be very valuable for parents looking at a slide like this or an environment like this to see where typical students from D303 tend to go. The reason is parents who aren't obsessed with colleges might not know. And to see where folks go gives them a leg up in exploring universities. This particular thing about the pathway to the University of Illinois should be shouted from the mountaintop for all the families here because it is such a fantastic deal and can really help some engineering students. But I just wanted to say, when you look at, for example, the finance and business services, Cornell University would show up in lots of places. It has a fantastic hospitality management program. Anyone who's seen Dirty Dancing knows that. And that remains. But it also has fantastic colleges for industrial and labor relations. And for those who know Cornell, those particular schools operate admittance-wise differently than other parts of the school. And so I think when you layer in the insight about where kids could go or might consider based on these pathways, there's another opportunity for communication.
That is a great suggestion. I actually was on the phone with Iowa State early on in this process to see what kind of partnership we can have there, because I know for their mechanical engineering, it is growing very quickly with St. Charles graduates. So. I would be remiss if I did not say that our CAI team, Anthony Serqua, an engineering teacher both East and North, and Aaron Chesney, the department chair at East, worked tirelessly with me to fill out the long application and paperwork that we require for the state to apply for a CCPE. In addition, I've really enjoyed working with the entire engineering team as we build the infrastructure to make sure that this plays out in our schools the way that we had in our imagination.
I'm just going to pop in for 1/10 of a second to say thank you so much for highlighting the engineering. One of my kiddos, actually both of them are in Synergy, and watching that change and evolve over the last 9 years has been nothing short of spectacular. And the way our kiddos can look at those colleges and have those connections now, so much so that other aspirational districts of ours are calling us to find out how we do this. So kudos to everyone who worked on that process and continue to improve it. It's spectacular.
The next one we want to kind of highlight is going in the different direction. Again, this one is in the exercise, physiology, and kinesiology area. And one reason we decided to highlight this is because we are one of the few districts that offers sports medicine as a class. Again, we started with these pathways building from a place of strength. Where are we seeing our staff and their talents, their certifications, and the courses that we offer, and how can we reorganize them to help students make sense of them? And so this one will probably not end up being a CCPE, but we want to show that there's a lot of pathway material here and that students can put the pieces together if they're interested in this area. And again, looking at those potential college programs and looking at future careers, showing what's possible for students who are interested and passionate about this area. And again, thinking about our middle school connections. Middle school, we're trying to get more and more exploration so that students can start to focus a little bit more on high school and really look at medical detectives. Are they interested in this aspect of healthcare and health in general?
Some companion features here. The picture on the right are our actual students. We are starting to curate photos to populate in the APG. We are trying to use that sidebar area as a way to engage students and families. So we have plans not just to incorporate pictures, but sometimes interview quotes from students about maybe taking a really rigorous AP course in the pathway, or for instance, in this case, how to access being CPR certified, et cetera.
Another model we wanted to introduce is highlighting our area that has an industry-recognized credential, which is part of the ACE, which is Automotive Service Excellence. We offer 4 certifications out of our ACE program between St. Charles East and North. This is a very popular program, and we have a lot of success with students in their internships and job placements. A few things we want to highlight here is often students in autos don't consider some of those other classes that might be helpful to them, some of the physics classes or digital electronics, as we are all driving around in computers right now. If you're going into automotive, you need to know some technology. We also wanted to show that perhaps you're going to be a small business owner and you should take Intro to Business so you know how to operate a business. And so we were really thinking through what are the things that would show students what's possible. We hope that these will be used in tandem with our college and career thing that we're bringing up, SchooLinks, where students can plan and think like, wow, I took this career survey. It came up that I like working with my hands and I'm really good at problem solving. Here are some options for you. And then if you're showing that on your career survey, these are some of the pathways that help you see what courses might suit your needs.
So I'm just going to piggyback, but I'll try to be very brief. This is really just a snapshot of what a course description would look like for a single course. And the content is probably less important, but if you take a look at the course number, we like the length and the credit, so that's over to the right. And then right above that is the course number, ST2721 means it's a full year. So 21 is for first semester, 22 is for the second semester. Then the other thing, we know we have a number of students who go on to Division I, Division II, Division III, or NAIA schools as student athletes. And one of the requirements, it used to be called the NCAA Clearinghouse, but our course requirements for NCAA participation in athletics at the next level. So one of the things, instead of having it on a single page, we're going to have this next to each of our course descriptions so they can see, of course, if I'm taking English 9 honors, that's pretty clear cut, right? Like that's a graduation requirement, but as we get into more specific courses in our pathways, they can check right there and see, does this fulfill that requirement or not? So in this case, it does. And then if there's a course fee specifically related to that, specifically like our PLTW or maybe an autos class or a dual credit class, we're going to have the course fee there. The other thing that we'll do is we'll have that embedded on a single page so that we can update those from year to year because those prices do adjust, but they can also look there if they're considering about taking that course. Of course, we want to make sure that all of our kids can take that regardless of the course fee, but they can look at that particular course and see what that additional course fee may be, or in this case, it's one of our core classes, and so that's not really relevant. All that to say, we still have 23 graduation credits for graduation right now, if that were to change, but they can see as they're doing their planning and going through from one semester to the next, freshman through senior year, am I on track to graduate in the 4 years, which is our targeted goal, so that I have access to any one of those 4 doorways that were shown, or all of them at some point, because we heard at 5 to 7 times in our career we're going to change, so they might decide to dip their toe in each of those doors at some point in time throughout their course, their professional career. So that's what that would look like.
So as we wrap up this snapshot, lengthy snapshot of what the academic program guide could look like and what its function is, we do have a timeline in mind, but really there are 2 timelines in our heads. One is our immediate timeline, and that's how do we get this ready for all students, middle and high school students, to start accessing in the fall so that they can use it for course selection and also in their overall planning. The other timeline is we are trying to establish sort of a cyclical process for reviewing the APG each year, making sure that we are considering input from families and students, looking at what pathways were used and considering what needs to be added potentially to a pathway. Is there a course that we would want to add? So we have 2 things in mind at the same time right now. And in our immediate future, we've engaged with the department chairs at the high schools and have opened up a process that I'm sure will take quite a bit of time where we actually look at our course descriptions. There are some that maybe we're ready to update, some that we've already updated through the CAI process, but given that we're authoring a new guide, it's a great time to look at what we're currently describing as our courses. Over the spring and summer, we will be refining the pathways that we've already created, interacting with our educators about what those pathways need to look like, and also looking at initiating new pathways and building it out so it can be finalized for the fall. We do anticipate bringing that design and content in its final form back to you in the fall so that you can see what that looks like and enjoy what I hope are all the fruits of our labor. And I think at this time, we have time set aside for insights from the board, and we welcome any and all of them.
I think I jumped that earlier, so my apologies. So yeah, we'll open it up for discussion here, board.
I have three quick things. Are you running it by kids and families before we print it? Okay, good. Second, is the CCPE ready for next year?
Students who are currently enrolled in the Introduction to Engineering Design will give an opportunity to express their interest in that pathway information in the next couple of weeks. I've already met with Francesca and Matt Clark at the middle school. I'm working with all of the IED teachers. So two things are happening in the next few weeks. Our industry experts are coming into our classrooms to visit with our students, which I'm very excited about. And then we are sending out information to students about how they register for interest in this pathway. That will be communicated with our school counselors so we can continue to guide them into their course selections.
Great. Third, check your pictures. It's pretty male, and I would like to see some female engineers and automotive people. So please check that, because I think I want to see myself in some of those pictures. And I'm curious about fine arts, if that's going to be, I looked, it's not coming, but I assume we're looking at, we talked about this before. I'm interested in art, so I'm hoping we can find pathways for that.
In the table of contents, we have all of the visual arts and the performing arts. So we have such robust programming in those areas. Those will be really fun to create.
Great. And congratulations to Francesca. Can't say your name, but congratulations on your new position next year.
When parents visit the U.S. News and World Report site, when they're trying to help their kids select colleges, there's a really neat feature where you can look at your students' grade point average and their test scores, and you get a really fast estimate about the likelihood of admittance to an individual college, and it's pretty accurate. One of the things I'm concerned hearing this is that we have an awful lot of content and knowledge-related activity embedded in the guide and some signal value. So we talked about the certifications, and we talked about the activities alignment within an individual pathway. When we look at number 5, back on slide 7, the question will come, is all of this allowing students to pick the pathway that they would like more in the future than they are today? And so this is not only an investment in everybody's time and energy to plan this out, but it's for the students to have a better selection of pathways. So I would ask the committee to think long and hard about how the signal value of certifications impacts college admittance or certification for industries such that those students in this lovely picture can walk through those doorways. If the answer is it doesn't contribute to admittance into colleges of choice, we have to take a hard look at the program. It doesn't mean it's not valuable. It means that the content exposure value might be outstripping the signal value to post-secondary institutions. That's okay, so long as we're aware that there's two different value drivers here. And so far, we've talked all about the content value, but not a lot about the signal value other than that certification. Once those kids have that engineering certification that we just talked about, do they get into schools differently than if they were absent? I don't know. Is it going to show up on the U.S. News and World Report as that quick filter? Because right now it's GPA and score. And so I just wonder, and so I just ask you to keep that in your mind as you think about that item 5 on success criteria.
Okay, I just have a quick one. I'm sorry. I just have a quick question that was sort of asked before, but I don't know if we have got a complete answer. We're talking about changing paths, changing landscape for career and college. And we don't want to prepare students for jobs that no longer exist, and that seems to be happening every couple of years. Some jobs that have existed don't exist anymore after just a couple of years. Are we providing the professional development for teachers outside of the district? Because I know we've had kind of a lot of inside the district, and I'd love to think we have all the answers here, but we don't. Are we providing professional development outside of the district for teachers to get that necessary training for those, as we see these new jobs and new career and college paths arising? And not only that, but not just the training, but additional endorsements as well, because that, of course, we know the state is going to start to require those things as well. So my question really is, are we doing that? And if we aren't, are we prepared to make the change to expend resources on that?
I can answer for sure that we are having a lot of conversations around that, one even today. I think that you're absolutely right. The landscape is changing. To know what that means in the long term is tough. However, we have spent some time gathering information from other districts and universities at this point regarding how they, neighboring districts even, how are they addressing that already as well. Certifications is a really interesting, and endorsements, a really interesting question. There are programs out there that do support a teacher's ability to add an endorsement on, and whether or not that becomes a priority, much like we said, learning for a purpose, would probably be around the meaning to a pathway, right? How meaningful is that to a pathway? So, of course, a teacher can choose on their own to pursue an endorsement anytime they like for themselves. At what point does it possess a value beyond that is a dialogue that we're currently having quite a bit.
And I guess I want to make sure that we are making sure that our faculty, we have faculty who, I like to keep them here. What I don't want is for them to pursue an endorsement on their own and say, well, I got this on my own, I'm leaving because I can go somewhere else. I want us to keep, I don't want it to be in-house training, but I want to keep those people here. I want a stable faculty. And a tag-on question is when we talked about opportunity for communications regarding the special programming, as Mr. Lackner was talking about, counselors as well. The counselors are going to need some extra training because, again, that's a landscape that's constantly changing, and they're going to need to be able to keep up with that as well.
Who will own the APG? Like, where is it going to sit in administration? Who's going to own it, right? Because we had a couple different ones at North, and then we have the construction paper at the middle schools, right? Who owns it now that we're doing all this work, hard work, and consolidating it?
Well, I think one of the things we're trying to do, like I mentioned at the beginning, is preserve the energies at the building for the students and the needs at the building. And I think one of the efforts around this that you're seeing is a concerted effort on those of us who support the buildings to take some of the onus. And when we talk about that cyclical process of what it will look like to revise this on a yearly basis, owning, to use your word, those communications and administering that process would be really difficult at a building because it may be different than another building, and we know that would be inefficient. The APG exists for all of our high school students, not just one building, so that initial ownership sits outside of the building with all of the input coming from the building, from the staff. But then I think they're integral in, revising the course descriptions and what information needs to be changed, gathering information from students as well.
But you kind of hit it on the head where I was going with it, right? Is that this is an endeavor that's been at the building level every year, and we've diverged, right? And one of the things that the board has said many times is we want that experience to be, doesn't matter what school you go to in St. Charles in D303, you have the same experience. That's why I was so excited to see this and to see all the energy from the different schools and all the innovation that North and East and everybody has come up with get funneled into this thing. So I don't want to lose that. And I think that is really important. That's why I said owning it, because I think this belongs at district. I think this is too important, a communication tool, and also like the budget implications. I think, and I don't want to get into the next stuff, but I mean, this is really impressive, and this is where we need to start putting the horsepower behind it.
Okay, I think we are good to move forward. Wonderful. Thank you,
Wonderful.
everyone,
We
very
will
much.
thank our APG team. Thank you, thank you.
Many of them will be staying, but will also be joined by the college and career planning. So please come on up and join.
Welcome, everybody. Should we do some intros for the new folks coming up to the
That'd
table?
be great, yes, thank you.
Sure. Matt Clark, Principal, Thompson Middle School. Good evening.
School counselor at St. Charles North. Bridget Holt, school counselor at Redling.
Katie Perkins, still school counselor, St. Charles East.
Katie Gomez, still AP for CCR at North.
Aubrey Shewitt, I'm the Director of Student Services here for the district.
Matt Gill, Assistant Principal for College and Career at East.
And Dr. Monica Bailey, Associate Director of High School Curriculum.
Well, thank you for that. The second portion of our presentation focuses on college and career readiness, commonly referred to as CCR. The central question guiding the work of this committee was, how do we effectively prepare and transition students into post-secondary opportunities? This evening, our team will outline the critical importance of beginning post-secondary planning in middle school. We will emphasize how individualized planning supports students in exploring their interests, identifying goals, and pursuing pathways that reflect their unique aspirations and strengths. The work of the CCR committee is deeply aligned with the district's strategic priorities by enhancing family communication through a comprehensive platform that focuses collaboration among students, families, community partners, and school staff throughout the post-secondary planning process, ensuring that every student has access to the resources and opportunities they need in order to succeed, centering student voice and individual choice in post-secondary planning, and implementing equitable policies, programs, and practices that create inclusive, responsive pathways for all learners. Through this lens, college and career readiness prepares every student for a future filled with possibility. The CCR committee represents a collaborative team that includes middle and high school teachers, school counselors, and administrators from each secondary campus. While several committee members are here with us this evening to help present our work, we want to take a moment to express our gratitude to the entire team and to the many staff members who provided valuable feedback throughout the process to help shape and guide our efforts. The CCR committee began its work by building a strong understanding of the PACE framework, focusing on its importance and the benefits for students and families. From there, the team established a shared set of beliefs, a clear vision, and guiding principles for college and career readiness planning. A thorough gap analysis is being conducted to compare current practices with the PACE framework, which will lead to specific action steps for alignment. The committee has then identified a comprehensive CCR planning platform to support students and families. And in May, the committee will be developing both a communication and professional learning plan to guide implementation across grades 6 through 12.
This slide presents a summary of the gist of what you'll hear from the rest of the committee. District 303 prioritizes college and career readiness by crafting personalized pathways for students from middle school through graduation. Our CCR committee has been and is looking at what we need to do to prepare students post-graduation, why it's important, and how to accomplish it. The goal is for each student to achieve self-sustainability through an individualized post-education plan and provide structures for students to begin constructing and implementing a plan for what they want to do after high school by starting this process in middle school.
The Post-Secondary and Career Expectations Framework, which moving forward will be referred to as PACE, ensures a continuous and connected path from middle school through post-secondary transitions. The purpose of the PACE framework for middle school students is to provide exposure to as many fields and interest areas with the purpose of sparking curiosity in different fields and pathways that will be explored further when students enter high school. The activities encourage self-awareness and future thinking in developmentally appropriate ways. The PACE framework helps high school students investigate pathways of interest to see if it is something they want to pursue post-high school, or, and almost more importantly, to identify those areas that are not of interest post-high school. The framework supports collaboration with all stakeholders in helping students make decisions related to post-secondary exploration, career development, and financial planning.
This slide highlights our commitment to equipping students for success after high school through the PACE framework. We focus on providing clear and comprehensive guidance so students feel empowered to make informed and confident decisions about their post-secondary path. This involves two key areas: academic readiness, ensuring all students can engage in college-level work and have opportunities to earn early college credit like advanced placement or dual credit. The second is post-secondary readiness, which connects their high school learning to future careers. We aim to provide opportunities to learn about different industries, potential roles, and the skills needed to thrive in them. Finally, we recognize that developing financial literacy is a crucial life skill for post-secondary success. We want our students to be equipped with the knowledge and understanding to manage their finances responsibly as they embark on their chosen paths.
At the end of tonight, we will be making a recommendation to purchase SchooLinks as our new college and career readiness platform. The next several slides will highlight how transformative this new platform will be for our students. Please note, some of our slides have live animations and interactive features to mirror those movements of students and/or families as they interact with the platform. SchooLinks is a robust and modern college and career readiness platform. It offers engaging, blended learning curriculum to guide students through the process of self-discovery, career exploration, and college planning. SchooLinks will allow us to support our students' college, career, and military readiness goals by providing a centralized location for tracking students' progress, equipping students with personalized planning tools, and giving them direct access to resources like scholarships, financial aid, as well as application and admissions guidance. From the counselor perspective, SchooLinks streamlines and simplifies their workload, offering a variety of collaboration and communication tools while also providing comprehensive data analysis and reporting capabilities. SchooLinks also makes it easy to manage community partnerships with local businesses and organizations and offers an expansive alumni management system and mentorship programs. SchooLinks aligns with the PACE framework by supporting students in meeting key milestones across middle school and high school related to college and career readiness through the three main areas mentioned previously: career exploration, post-secondary education planning, and financial literacy. SchooLinks will help ensure that our students meet PACE benchmarks through interactive, engaging, and personalized tools.
Students gain real-world experience to help shape their future career paths through interactive career exploration. They can discover in-demand paths aligned with their interests using tools like a comprehensive Bureau of Labor Statistics database and engaging career inventories. Internship and apprenticeship opportunities, both in-person and remote, are easily accessible through SchooLinks Employer Network, VolunteerMatch.org, and district uploads. This platform offers a guided post-secondary exploration experience, helping students discover educational programs and institutions based on various personalized factors. It includes a comprehensive directory of 2- and 4-year colleges, vocational programs, and military options, all presented in an interactive and user-friendly format with extensive filtering tools. Additionally, it features a college application and transcript manager that enables students and counselors to track and manage application documents efficiently. Staff can easily monitor student outcomes and track the status of college applications in real time. They can quickly manage and respond to document requests, sending transcripts and recommendations with just a click. Integration with Common App and Parchment streamlines the process, saving time and improving efficiency.
This is an example of the student case file feature in SchooLinks. The student case file is a comprehensive portfolio that consolidates a student's academic and career planning information. It is accessible to parents and guardians and offers insights into a student's progress and future planning. The key components of the case file are assessment results, where you can view your student's career interests, strengths, and mindset assessments to help understand their interest and any potential career paths. There's completed activities, which include career exploration exercises and self-discovery assessments. Experience tracking, where you can monitor your students' extracurricular experiences like internships or volunteer work or other relevant activities. College and career goals, where you can see what colleges and careers your student has favorited and are interested in. And a personalized dashboard, where you can stay informed with upcoming events, important reminders, and to-dos for your student. The free application for financial student aid, or FAFSA, determines a student's eligibility for federal financial aid, including grants, work study, and loans, making college or post-secondary trainings more affordable for millions of students. Additionally, the completion of the FAFSA is a graduation requirement in the state of Illinois. SchooLinks simplifies access to financial aid information for students, families, and counselors. It will automatically track and share FAFSA completion data, keeping everyone informed. Schools can easily monitor progress and verify FAFSA submissions or waivers. This is an example of the student view of this FAFSA reporting feature. Students can indicate their intent regarding their FAFSA filing, and this feature will allow school counselors to monitor student progress and will help streamline communication between students, families, and counselors. The beauty of this two-way communication is that we will easily be able to identify students who might be having issues with filing, and we're able to then connect them to supports earlier. This, in turn, could help increase the amount of aid that our students receive.
A main component of the PACE framework is including all stakeholders in supporting our students in their post-secondary and career planning. SchooLinks allows for easy and quick setup of parent or guardian accounts. Once a parent or guardian account is set up, they can access student activity, which may be college applications or look at their students' course planning. SchooLinks also provides a collaborative space to communicate with students or to communicate with student and counselor about their post-secondary plans. Another piece of the PACE framework is supporting our students in developing their financial literacy. SchooLinks offers the Game of Life activity, which gives students the opportunity to build out the life they foresee for themselves, including a chosen career, number of family members, investments, if they want to own pets, and etc. This is a powerful and fun tool for students to see what their financial outlook will be for their anticipated post-secondary plans. SchooLinks supports state reporting with pre-built reports aligned with state expectations, which will help our schools meet reporting expectations while reducing staff workload. It also provides real-time data and enables data analysis at the district, school, and students level, making tracking and reporting efficient and insightful. Next, Katie Perkins is going to speak to you about our current college and career readiness platform, Naviance, and break down how the features within Naviance compare to those of SchooLinks.
Okay, so while Naviance and SchooLinks both support core functions like transcript submissions and those career interest inventories, SchooLinks does stand out by offering a far more comprehensive and future-ready platform for our students. SchooLinks supports all post-secondary pathways, not just college, with dedicated tools for military planning, work-based learning experiences like internships or apprenticeships, and virtual campus tours. You can see real-time reports on the essential data using scope and sequence solutions, and you can track CCR state mandates. Additionally, and I know this was kind of mentioned before, SchooLinks offers lifelong alumni accounts. So that would ensure that our students continue to have access to their resources and planning tools even after they graduate. These features make SchooLinks a more inclusive and interactive tool. It's really not just about checking boxes, it's about preparing our students for life beyond high school.
I would just jump, if I can, just jump in at this point. It's a good time to point out Mrs. McCabe's question when you asked earlier. This is where we anticipated maybe being able to give you some of those answers about a student who didn't have a pathway. We hope that it wouldn't be for lack of being able to explore that and their mindsets and their interests and increasing a dialogue with a counselor.
Okay, the proposed SchooLinks contract encompasses a comprehensive suite of services designed to support college and career readiness for our students. This includes the base platform, which provides the foundational tools for managing and streamlining post-secondary planning across multiple pathways. Additionally, the contract includes the CCR Data Suite, a set of analytics tools that enables data-driven decision-making, accurate state reporting, and supports the tracking of student progress towards their post-secondary goals. The agreement also includes staff training, both virtual and in-person professional development sessions aimed at equipping our educators with the necessary skills to effectively use the platform and its features. Initial implementation costs are covered in year one, ensuring that the platform is set up correctly and integrated smoothly into our current student information systems. Some of these expenses will be offset through funding provided by the CTE grant, reducing the overall financial impact. Furthermore, the district is currently under contract with Naviance, which is set to expire in June. This will free up funds that can be reallocated to cover part of the costs associated with the SchooLinks agreement, making this transition to the new platform more financially feasible. Together, these components of the agreement offer a robust framework for enhancing student engagement and success in post-secondary planning while fostering ongoing professional growth for staff.
Okay, let's open it up for some comments, questions.
Back on slide 35, you talked a little bit about the military. Each one of the branches of the military has more than 100 job codes for enlisted folks. And each of those job responsibilities is gated by certain scores on the ASVAB, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. Does Naviance, does SchooLinks link to either the ASVAB test or the military's enlisted job categorization schema?
So what I know from the research and the discovery through the SchooLinks process is that in the career discovery and planning section or portion within the base platform, they break out their career center into career clusters, military careers, career profiles, and career mentoring videos. So there's an entire section within the platform that will address military-specific careers and the requirements associated with that. I have not seen it myself, but I fully anticipate that that is worked in.
You have a lot of faith. I'm less convinced that SchooLinks has any of those job codes from the enlisted military branches embedded within it. And the reason I bring it up is that we do have a percentage of students that would like to matriculate into the military or would like to go in. There's two things that we have to communicate to them. One, there are a ton of job opportunities in the military. Two, any individual recruit's fitness or the military's acceptance of them for those job codes is related directly to their scores on the ASVAB. And so if we're not exposing students to the ASVAB or to those job opportunities, we have a real opportunity to move that 1% perhaps to a 3% or some other percent. And I think exposure would help there. I don't see that given the college focus of SchooLinks. It's even in the name, SchooLinks.
Yeah.
So I would encourage the group to look really closely at what we could do to bolster exposure to the military job codes and to the ASVAB.
I'd like to further investigate that over the next couple of days, and I can provide an update on Friday.
Surprised. I had a question about, I'm assuming since counselors have talked to us that you've gone through it, you're relieved. I hope that this is going to enhance your work and probably give you more opportunities to interact with kids. How is it tied to the APG? Is it easy as a parent? Am I going to have to do this, or is it I click on this and now I know the course is? I don't know.
So
Maybe you
one
don't
of the
know yet.
features of the APG that we've sketched out is an actual link and part of a page to SchooLinks. So it's an embedded piece of our APG that would give a blurb about the information, explain what it's for, and potentially have that actually near the table of contents or on the table of contents page, so that we would highlight it as something that we use. How do we use it? What is it for? How can you access it? I do agree, we've thought about trying to be as efficient as possible, and we're certainly open to suggestions if you have other ways, but that's what we've spoken to it at this point.
My hope is that we do this, I'm not worried about the kids. They're going to figure it out faster than any of us. But it's mom and dad or whoever the guardian is who's going to want to be able to go and double check. I would ask parents to pilot it, get feedback. I'm sure you will get feedback as to where it's working. It would really be lovely to have a family that says, Navient did not do this, and I am so glad that we moved over. I would love to hear when we do it right. When will this be ready if the board approves it?
It'll be ready for implementation with the board approval potentially on May 12th. There would be, before the end of the school year or before the end of the counselor's contract for this year, there would be some professional learning opportunities. Then before they launch into the summer, they would have opportunities to engage with the tool over the summer, as well as to support current juniors, rising seniors, access to that tool so that when they return to school in August, it is ready to go for each student, but specifically for our seniors.
All right.
Would our counselors just talk about SchooLinks? Why have you been so adamant on championing this tool over the Naviance tool? Just from your own words, like, why is this such a different piece? And then our assistant principals in that area as well, please.
Yeah, I could speak to that a little bit. So I've only known Naviance. That's been the only tool I've used in my career. But with that, you know, when you start to see what else is out there and what else is accessible to students, some of the things that colleagues in other districts have had to say and other students that I've known, it's really a more student-centered application. So even for the fact of, you know, a lot of my students apply to college on their phone, right? They're doing everything on their phones outside of school as well. And SchooLinks has an app available for that, or it has like a mobile function, whereas Naviance does not. So, you know, when I'm working with a student on Naviance and their Chromebook is dead, you know, that's really it. We have to go find a charger, and there's no other recourse. And so I think that SchooLinks speaks the language a little bit more to students. And even just in the way that it is designed, a student will be able to log into SchooLinks, and right off the bat, they will be able to utilize it. It's a very student-friendly function, whereas Naviance, there needs to be a degree of instruction from us to the student to really show them how to access it and how to benefit it. It's not really a pure exploration tool like SchooLinks is. So it has a little bit of more of that kind of fun, interactive sense that students can kind of take it and run with it without needing like a one-on-one mentoring, you know, conversation.
I would echo the intuitive nature of SchooLinks. Extremely intuitive platform, so I want to echo exactly what Katie has been sharing. Also, I think the FAFSA piece in there is something that Naviance does not do. So this is one example of right now where we're using Naviance, and then we have a spreadsheet for FAFSA completion. So we're cobbling together different things and kind of pushing it together. It works, but it's time intensive, it's labor intensive. So a program like, a platform like this definitely saves a good deal of time. So that's what I like about it. That's just one example of how it would save time. And I also feel like it helps to bridge communication, because right now, if there's struggling going on with FAFSA, we have to pull a report from ISAC, I have to put it in a spreadsheet, then we're going to look to see who that is, and then reach out with an email, right? But if we have it all in one place, then there's no need for a lot of that back and forth, cobbling this stuff together to try to help a student or a family who might be struggling with FAFSA completion. So again, that's just one example, but I think it illustrates the point.
So I have an easy question and a difficult one. What's the licensing difference between re-upping with Naviance versus the implementation cost here? That's the easy question. And the more difficult one is, what percentage of the increase in student realization of first choice and post-secondary pursuits, that's your goal from slide 7, will be accounted for by a full and complete implementation of SchooLinks versus the implementation of the academic program guide versus every other program that we talk about at the board table that's supposed to increase and positively affect student outcomes? What percent of number 5 on the list does SchooLinks represent?
I think that's an interesting thing to tease out. We do have plans and have had conversations regarding how we could possibly do that. Some of that would have to be through survey or self-reporting and communications. But I see both of them, as well as some of the other aspects that we'll hear, all having impact. And so, as we've had conversations before, how you tease that out, I think, is interesting and delicate at the same time.
I appreciate that. I asked the question not for a specific answer, but to understand the way the committee's thinking about this tool as one of the many things geared towards that same goal, but also to highlight the fact that the goal is not yet quantified. And so while we have a baseline set for school year 26, how do we know that the gap between the $10,000 gap between Naviance and SchooLinks is worth it? I heard a lot of administrative rationales for it, and maybe the students might like it better, but I have yet to hear the outcome impact that will have on results for students. So that's, I can make the leap. If they like it better, they might spend more time in it, therefore they might explore more. I can get there logically, but I've yet to hear what the result impact is.
So I'm going to jump into, because mine kind of ties into that. My question really was kind of what's the marginal difference between the two, and I think you answered that. The question I also have is, very often when we receive things, there's a preferred program and you see the benefits, and so we see, a breakdown here of what Naviance does, what SchooLinks does, and then what Naviance doesn't do that SchooLinks does. We don't see, is there anything that Naviance does that SchooLinks doesn't? And that I think has to give us even if it's not the program you want, we need to see kind of the full picture. I will echo also sentiments. I've had some experience with SchooLinks, and it has, from the teacher side, it has been an easier use than Naviance. But again, I don't know the depth of both programs. So I'd like to see the things that Naviance does that SchooLinks doesn't do, because I guarantee those exist. We just don't see them here.
And I'm going to be a little cynical, but if there is a way that a kid can use it on their cell phone, with all the cell phone stuff we've just said we're not going to let them do at high school, they'll be able to pull their cell phone out at least when they see the counselor.
Yeah, it's pretty cynical. I'm going to give you an A+ on cynicism, I should say.
I can speak to SchooLinks just as a teacher. One of our students who I had in class 2 years ago moved to Naperville 203. She asked me to write her a college letter of rec. It was not a platform I'd used before. I've always used Naviance, or Career Cruising was one before that. By far the easiest platform as somebody even outside of the school district trying to use, because 203 and 204 both use it. We are also, as part of the ECC region, with 3 other school districts. The other 3 school districts all use SchooLinks. So when we do a job fair or we do manufacturing month tours, one district can assign, and say, oh, we designed this, and then kids who did a survey that said, I'm really interested in manufacturing, a flyer goes into their profile, like, hey, you might be interested in this event. That is, I know, not a feature in Naviance. As a parent who's also signed on to the parent portal, it's pretty easy to use. And I know Naviance does not have a parent portal that we currently use. And so I use it with my kids now, and it is very intuitive. It was easy to sign up. I can totally see what my kids are doing, and I can go in and do all of my end of what they're doing as well. Just to give you some of that feedback from somebody who's used both of the systems.
That's actually really helpful and the perfect segue into the question that I had. Where might we drive either the board, if they would like to see some interactive tools that they could use, or tutorials, or the community members that might be listening? Where would we drive them to experience this tool?
I can tell you, we at first planned for you to log in and try it, and then we decided we would come back to that. So I think the intent is that we would have help sessions or times where we would show parents how to use it in Communication Home and also for you. I hope I did not overspeak with that, Audra.
I think the example of the process that we're currently doing for the FAFSA kind of sells me quite a bit on this tool. One, just helping keep our information a little bit more secure, right? Not having to download into a spreadsheet, not having to deal with that, not having to communicate that out separately. I'm sure that you guys could come back and quantify some administrative time to help other board members understand what that means, because I'd much rather have the team working with parents and with students than cleaning up a spreadsheet and doing some other things. That, to me, that is, I mean, that's part of my job day to day, is kind of taking some of those manual processes out and doing it. So I have a strong appreciation for that. My question is really around the financial literacy stuff. Do the counselors get to see what the students and parents are modeling to help you with prompts and conversations and stuff like that? Do you guys get to see that and give feedback? What does that look like for you guys? The game of life stuff.
I would say the game of life one is, obviously as a middle school counselor, and it's something new. I haven't seen it myself, but when we did we had someone walk us through some of these different tools, and there's other tools out there too, like on ONET and things like that do something similar. But you are able to see, what the student is doing and help have discussions with them about either choices they're making and things like that, because we know that just understanding finances really helps and allows them to be successful post-graduation.
I'm most interested in, to Mr. Lackner's point earlier, right, about giving them different signals and things to look at, right? Their primary signal is going to be their household, then their, the kids that they hang around with, and then the school, and then the community broader, right? When you start to look at some of these careers and the opportunities that they have, and then you put a tool in front of them that lets them model, it helps, one, get creativity, but two, explore some other areas that they may not have been. And I see it as a really interesting tool for our counselors and, mentors, or, however they're interacting with, being able to go, hey, you looked at this, did you also think about this? Because it's similar, but it may align a little bit better, right? Because the system's going to understand what data we have in the SIS, or what other data we have on the student. It's not going to have some of those insights that our teachers and our counselors are going to have. And I see it as a real opportunity for us to kind of broaden how we're communicating with them and getting that. So that would be something that I'd ask you guys to look a little bit further into and see that as how you can, how you can take that back.
I think a piece that goes along with that, so there's the game of life activity to really help students kind of understand a little bit more about budgeting and a little bit about long-term planning and life planning and that aspect of financial literacy. But I think also as they do the career exploration opportunities within the platform itself, if a student searches a particular career, they can also look at the region in the United States or beyond, and they can identify, so what is the base salary for this if I have this degree from this institution? What is it if I choose a different, perhaps, career or perhaps university or perhaps degree? How does that play with the base salary? And so when we talk about livable wage, that also helps to educate them on that. And there are, in addition to the actual activities that students can engage in independently, there are also lessons and other tools and resources that counselors and teachers can use to help reinforce and support that learning.
100%. I mean, it can also, back to something that we've said a lot, right? It can help reinforce potentially what my first choice is. So that'd be the other question that I have is, when are we going to lock in what their first choice is, right? Like, at what point are we going to lock that in? Because I know my first choice changed a lot, right? And I know all the kids, like, you talk to them coming in as a freshman, you talk to them in middle school, right? Which we're starting to get more information on, right? At what point are we going to, as a district, decide to lock in that's the first choice? Right, so that would be one that I'd look to you guys to say, okay, here's when we're doing our census for this. Let's do it here, and then now we're going to be measured against that. Because I see these tools as helping not just to help manage this process for us, both administratively and for our parents and our students, right? But also to help guide and show what the other options are for us.
If I could jump in for a second.
Yeah.
As Audra was pointing out, there are a lot. What's beautiful about SchooLinks that Naviance really lacks, and Katie touched on this as well, is the ability that the platform grows with a student past high school. And so if we're going to be linking SchooLinks to our high school experience of vision, it's this idea, as Audra pointed out earlier about the doors, that we might have a student who enters the trade door, and then a few years later, they can log back into SchooLinks, and they can look at the game of life, or they could look at the Would You Rather game, or any of these other student-focused tools they use. They can look back at that, and then maybe go back out that door and explore something else that they forgot that they were interested in, or forgot that they were good at. And so SchooLinks is really powerful in that way, and it isn't something that Naviance has for our students and for their families.
I think that's a great call, because I remember seeing in the thing about the alumni, whatever, for like, so, I mean, they're really getting a benefit from us, right? From our students and our data, right? And the student data. But that is something that, again, from our alumni actually being able to come off of this, and we have a very strong alumni association in D303, that would be a really great tie-in for them as well, so.
So I have a little more technical comment on slide 45. It's about $120K for 3 years for the cost. I want to focus in on the less CTE grant. We had a conversation at the start about the potential for CTE grants to go up. Does the mere presence of SchooLinks, as this slide would suggest, get us actual new revenue, not today's revenue redefined here, but new revenue of $20,000, $14,000, $14,000, or is this a reallocation of existing revenue?
It's a reallocation of existing revenue, and then as we continue to, as we talked about on those success indicators, that third one about funding through CTE, as more students engage in the pathways, and we get that funding back, then that allows us to spend or to allocate more of the dollars to cover the cost.
Let me ask the question differently. Mm-hmm. Will we have more revenue because we've implemented SchooLinks of $20,000 or not? And the reason I'm pressing on that is because the slide makes it look like the price is something less than $120K, and that's probably not true. What's more true is that 48,000 or 50,000 could be used elsewhere, and you're applying it here. Is that about right?
That is correct.
Okay, so the real price is the subtotal price, not the total price. And we've decided to use a different part of the budget to underwrite the cost of this transition. And the reason I'm saying it out loud that way is for the community to hear that the price is 120. It's not that total line. And
You are
we have this challenge with revenue, particularly grant revenue, and the way that we talk about it at the table. And those negatives, those are not net new dollars. Those could have or might have been used somewhere else. And so the opportunity cost is the 48,000.
One of the items with that is we do have to report our CCRI data to the state. And currently, like Matt alluded to, we do spreadsheets and report that to the state. So we download and then do a re-upload. And so the only reason we can use grant dollars is because SchooLinks reports directly to the state, which eliminates inaccuracies. And so I understand your point. It is part of the accuracy in some of the data reporting as well.
Your point is very different than mine. Mine is
very different.
Is a point for the administration about the way that we manage dollars.
Correct.
And at 120K, I'm still on board for SchooLinks. Please don't get me wrong. I just think that it's not exactly correct to show $48,000 discount. That's not what this is. It's a reallocation of a different budget line and a reflection of an opportunity cost and a value judgment that we would like to reallocate that. And so let's stick with the subtotal. It's 120K of dollars out the district's door to license this software.
I had one more quick question. And sorry if I missed this while I was jotting down, I think, 7 pages of notes so far. As the user number grows for SchooLinks, presumably we like it, we continue it. We're, I think, proposing a 3-year contract here. Does that value increase as our alumni and so forth well into the future are utilizing this? Is this a per user, or is it capped at however many users we want to put into the program? And again, sorry if I missed that.
It is not dependent on independent or individual users. It is for our system, for our district. So increasing by the alumni each year, or increasing with the incoming grade levels, incoming 6th graders, that does not increase, that in and of itself does not increase the cost.
And then again, access to this would be indefinite?
True.
Other questions here from the board? Moving right along. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you very much. And at this time, I'd like to invite our time usage team to the table. All right, and as you get settled, if you don't mind, please take a moment to introduce yourselves. Let's start with you, Mr. Richter.
Good evening, I'm Jim Richter, principal at St. Charles East.
And I'm Melinda Roberts, the Assistant Principal for Instructional Programs at St. Charles North.
Kara Erdmeyer, School Counselor at St. Charles North.
Sam Batka, one of the team leaders over at Redling Middle School, and I'm also one of the teachers.
Hi, Carrie Grabowski. I'm a 8th grade teacher at Thompson Middle School.
Welcome, everybody. It's great to have you.
All right, well, good evening. We are pleased to share with you an update from the Time Usage Committee with the guiding question of how do we use our instructional time with students. Our outcome through this process is to examine how we currently use time within our school day to meet the needs of students such that we can recommend structures to best meet those needs. This work is strongly aligned with our strategic priorities. The way in which we allocate and use time within the school day directly impacts the effectiveness of PLCs that use research and evidence of student learning to deliver highly effective instruction. Additionally, time is needed for collaboration to ensure educators to identify equitable systems of support for students, as well as preserve that time in the school day for all students. All of this is designed to improve the outcomes for students through all three of the components of the culture of dignity.
Similar to all committees present, Time Usage has an exceptional group of educators that came together for this work. We represent a diverse group of middle and high school teachers, administrators, and related services. We have been meeting monthly since early first semester and will continue until a recommendation is made. The development of a roadmap was essential in seeing this work through. Thus far, the group has developed both vision and belief statements. We've identified the guiding principles for secondary school time structures. Once that work was completed, feedback was gathered at the building level. More on that will be shared on the next slide. In December and January, the group conducted a gap analysis between our current time structures and our vision. This spring, we have been researching different secondary time structures using the lens of maximizing student learning outcomes. Right now, we are determining those recommendations and professional learning that will be required to support the plan, and a look at where we go from here is forthcoming.
Good evening. As Kara foreshadowed in that last slide, earlier in the winter of this school year, we solicited feedback from both middle school and high school staff about the group's vision and belief statements. We also identified the guiding principles related to what we are trying to accomplish within our group, as well as within the school day with our students. And this slide, as you can see here, shows the overwhelmingly positive ratings for each area that we sought out feedback.
One of the most important and impactful activities we engaged in was reviewing our current secondary school structures. We then conducted an analysis of those structures by cross-referencing our committee's belief statements, vision statements, and guiding principles with feedback we gathered from our secondary staff. Emerging from that analysis were several high-priority gaps in our current structures that both the middle schools and the high schools want to address when considering a new structure. They are providing time for students to seek out personalized resources, such as academic, social emotional, intervention, support from caring adults, cognitive breaks, etc. Providing time for teachers to collaborate with other educators to support students' academic and social emotional needs. Providing time for teachers to learn and plan for best first instruction for all learners, and providing time for teachers to provide targeted learning opportunities to students after best first instruction. Additionally, there were level-specific gaps that emerged from that process. For the middle school, they were providing time for teachers to foster positive peer relationships between students inside the classroom, and for students to develop relationships with caring adults. For the high school, it was providing time for students to explore interests both academically and personally. The collective and level-specific gaps will be instrumental to our team and the remaining work we have left to do this spring.
I'm going to bring us back to our roadmap so we could talk about the committee's next steps. Currently, we're reviewing research related to different structures according to our beliefs, vision, and guiding principles to determine the degree to which they not only address the identified priority gaps, but also positively impact the experiences and outcomes of those within our school community. Once we finalize our recommendation, we will initiate the feedback process again to consider changes, identify professional learning needed to implement it, and then formally make the recommendation to the Board of Education and the community in June.
Okay, I'm going to push back a little bit here. And I wasn't expecting to. What is your vision statement? We haven't heard that yet, so I'm curious as to what that is. I see a lot of it focused on teacher time and not on student time. So is this a vision that gives teachers more planning time, which if you know me, that is real important. But how is this improving learning? How will we know that if we're changing anything with the time, is this going to have a huge impact on instruction to change student learning? So I don't know what your vision is. I don't know the belief statements, and I'm curious about how this is, I want to know how this is really going to improve student success.
I will add again to the board update on Friday, the vision and with all of the belief statements, vision statements, and guiding principles. Ay caramba, I know, it's green, I don't know. They were all included in board update last week. I will make sure that it is included again and can highlight some specific information. While the gaps and worded as questions and then to give answers, there are a number of them that are related to staff time in being able to provide students with intervention, provide students with opportunities to connect, provide students with support academically as well as with social emotional skills and kind of those soft skills. So all of that is associated with the beliefs and the vision and the guiding principles. The guiding principles were really where we leaned when we looked at the gap analysis and also leaned when we collected feedback from the secondary staff at both middle and high schools to be able to get their feedback on, are these right, are there suggestions? So those were, the original statements were modified to make sure that the voice of staff was also included beyond just the committee to make sure that they were accurate and updated. So I apologize that that isn't in the packet tonight, but I will make sure that you have access to those statements.
If I missed it, I do read the update, so I apologize if I missed it. Because my thinking is we're talking about the middle school structure as well as the high school structure. I would prefer that we don't wait till June to know what you're thinking and what you're talking about, and I want to support you. And so I guess what I'm asking for is at a future date, I think we need to have a bigger discussion.
Absolutely, will do. I also, with this committee's charge statement that was outlined on those roadmap, on the side, to the left side of the roadmap, this committee's charge was to really identify what are those gaps and what are those structures without fully defining a schedule. And so there will be, after these recommendations of structures, there will be an opportunity to hand the baton, if you will, to another team, a charge statement that will be developed for a team for next year to really lean into, so then how do we make this happen as it relates specifically to a schedule?
And personally, I'm not looking for a schedule. Okay. Because what is the middle school supposed to look like? And I'll just be frank about it. I think we've moved away from that middle school approach, that we've gone more back to a junior high school. So I want to know why. I want to know what is best for kids, especially at that particular age. We've heard from other board member about block scheduling at the high school level, and we know it's out there twirling around in some other districts. So I would prefer that we know what you're thinking and what you're doing before we get a schedule, before the board has to make a decision. So and we're all, what is it? It's already April. So maybe we'll see you next month.
So, I was just curious, what made, especially our middle school, why were these two items our highest priority gaps? And what other gaps are not our highest priorities on this?
Are you referring to the differences between the high priority gaps from the high school and the middle school?
No, so like reading this, our middle school specific high priority gaps, teachers fostering positive peer relationships between students inside the classroom and students developing relationships with caring adults are our two our specific high priority gaps. Are these the two highest priority gaps, or are you just giving us two example gaps?
Those are differentiated from the needs of the high school.
Okay.
So the previous list, those are like the high priorities for both the middle school and high school. And at the middle school level, those two additional priorities. So maybe that term, like the high priority, maybe that's throwing you off. I wouldn't say that those two priorities are the highest at the middle school, but at the middle school level, it is needed.
I guess I'm also struggling with trying to put those gaps, specifically those two, into our middle school and high school schedules and how it would impact academic achievement.
Right.
Right? Because I'll read, the first one, okay, fostering positive peer relationships between students inside the classroom, right? Okay, small group activities, I can see those things, but what does that have to do with our scheduling? Because that, to me, that's more of a little bit deeper into the curriculum or what type of activity we're doing. So that's why I'm kind of trying to map it.
I think I might be, okay, good, my mic is working. I think I can answer for the group that some of these gaps don't necessarily require removing instructional time for academics to address this. Many of these things can be implemented into our classes through different systems and different programs. What might address this is professional development, which can then be systematized through our PLC processes, right? So not all of them are going to mean, oh, we're gonna take this away from something else to make this work. We're talking about, we talked about professional development in addition to potentially looking at the way that we structure our time to meet these, to fill these gaps.
Okay.
So I'll ask the same kind of philosophical question that I asked previously, which is, what % of the increase in student realization of first choice and post-secondary pursuits will be driven by any change in the calendar, in the school day, or in the way that time is used? And as you think about any of the conversation, whether it's classroom usage in time, or if slide 52 are common to middle school and high school and 53 are unique to each, what's the impact on student outcomes? And if that comes through a logical daisy chain that says teacher efficacy requires this change in time, then please bring that back and say teacher efficacy will be impacted positively this way, and we know that has a link to student outcomes. But so far, I don't know where it fits.
And although I wouldn't be able to provide you a quantifiable number at this time, one of the things that emerged for us from the high school lens was specifically thinking about aligning our practice to the PACE framework and just understanding that if we really want each of our students to be able to have that ability to be able to really explore those interests and be able to think about what is that top college choice and be able to really think about preserving and protecting time in their school day to be able to really explore that. And just as an example, one of the things we pointed out is we have students who might go 8 consecutive periods in a day with an academic course load, and then couple that with activities after school. And if we wanted to ensure that we are also providing them that time in the school day to be able to access those things through the PACE framework as an example, we've got to consider how we might find other ways to build in that time to be able to afford them those opportunities as well. So that's an example of something that we, from the high school lens, looked at and realized that we are falling short in our current model to be able to deliver that to each of our kids in our system.
And that's fine. We've talked a lot about the ways that student outcomes are measured. We have aspirational districts to whom we've looked for insight into particular curriculum and material. If there are structures that other schools that we look at as having a greater impact on student realization of first choice and post-secondary pursuits, let's talk about those structures as models for us to consider.
And that's ironically the exact test that we just completed at our meeting last week, was to look at those aspirational districts, our comparative ones, our aspirational districts, and be able to examine a whole spreadsheet of all their different schedules, and then we populated that into essentially a feedback form on the slide to be able to say, these are the schools that rise to the top or emerging to us as the ones that are most likely to meet not only our needs, but also address the gaps that we have. So that was an activity we engaged in last week that I'm looking forward to be able to springboard into our next meeting, which will be next week.
I'd like to include, we were also looking at the middle schools that do feed into those inspirational high schools.
Okay, board, anything else here? All right, well, thank you very much, appreciate it.
If we could invite up our first CAI team, which I believe is Monica, but also math.
Okay, so we've got some new faces to the conversation, so why don't we just do a couple brief introductions?
I'll start from my end. Monica Bailey, Associate Director of High School Curriculum.
Hi, I'm Midge Hampton. I'm the Department Chair, Math Department Chair at East High School.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Anderson, Math Department Chair.
Francesca Favero, one of the assistant principals at Redling.
Kevin Harrington, Math TOSA.
Welcome, everybody, thanks for being here.
Thank you. We're going to move into the academic rigor portion. We're going to really engage in that question of how the academic rigor is going to support guaranteed and viable curriculum and also support our high school experience. So we're going to zoom in on the 4 core content areas, get a little bit of an update and hear about their resource recommendations tonight. We'll be centered in all 3 of our strategic priorities by tapping into evidence-based instructional practices, that guaranteed and viable curriculum, equitable systems of support, and then also looking at effective collaboration through PLCs, student learning, and culture of dignity tonight.
So I want to review, part of our CAI process is to really think about our core academics. And our graphic that we use here is how our core is foundational for all programs, for all students. We know that it opens doors when kids are successful in our core academics, especially through math and literacy across our content areas. And so we really want to talk about how our CAI process produces a guaranteed and viable curriculum that all students can access and be successful at. We look and prioritize high-quality curriculum and instructional materials so students have a lot of exposure to grade level and beyond standards and really support any pathway that they want for their post-secondary success. Our core that we're looking at today, if you want to switch it, in this order, we'll talk about our math first, and then we will invite our science department chairs, then English and social studies. And we want to assure you that each of these content areas followed the same CAI process. All of them examined and unwrapped the grade level standards and beyond standards. We looked a lot at what is going to help our students dig into opportunities for college credit within high school. We looked at consideration of all learners, trying to get representation from a lot of voices on our team, and we use the resources authentically with our students. We learn a lot in a field test process, as each group will attest to, and we also use them within our PLC process to see how well they support that work as one of our priorities. We use a consensus building model, so there's not so much as a voting with winners and losers, but we all talk together about our vision for that instructional experience for students, and a collaborative leadership model between learning and teaching, our building department chairs, our building administrators, and also our teachers. And all of this is based on evidence that we gather in a lot of different ways. So each of our departments are going to highlight different parts of that process. They all follow the same process, but we figured you didn't want to hear the same thing 4 times. And so they're going to highlight different aspects that they experienced as a team.
Thank you. So to begin our search for a new resource, we researched the high-performing aspirational districts and benchmark districts to learn what resources they use and how they use them. We also visited the NCTM, or National Council of Teachers Mathematics Conference in Chicago, and we spoke with many textbook vendors there, and we were able to bring back many samples to investigate.
And along with obtaining a new resource, we recognized the need to provide an honors level Algebra 1 learning experience, especially for our accelerated students. And we wanted to really just ensure that we are accelerating them well. So scaffolding and supporting our students in their learning within the rigorous honors level, especially while in middle school, this will further their preparedness and anticipated success in the honors path during their high school experience.
Having the thoughtful approach towards all students, we wanted to ensure the resource supports the accelerated, standard level, multilingual learners, and students that are accessing special services, all while maintaining an underlying goal for the strong ACT performance.
Oops. One of the things that's unique to this group, obviously it's marketed as an Algebra 1 CAI, but unique to this team is we not only had Algebra 1 teachers, but we also had teachers that represented the classes that will come after, in order to consider all of the perspectives of the implications of a new curriculum. So you'd see people, obviously, administrators, we had teachers, we had our TOSAs, we had people from learning and teaching all present as part of the committee, but we also had honors algebra teachers, co-teachers, and we had geometry. Honors Algebra 2, we had a gamut of people, so when we evaluated the resource, we not only considered the implications of what that would mean for algebra, but also what does that mean for honors geo? What does that mean for geo? What does that mean for honors algebra 2? What does that mean for next steps, so that we can consider all of the facets of the curriculum and the resource when making our recommendations?
Yeah, so we began our field test in January, and that was a comparison of 2 resources, and we used that against 2 different units of study in Algebra 1. We also compared their digital platforms for use with instruction and assessment, as well as with what was available for supplemental resources that would support reteaching, spiraling or spaced practice, which is something that we found to be very supportive of our students and their learning and retention, as well as enrichment opportunities for our students.
At the end of our field test, our field experience, the team engaged in a thorough evaluation of the 2 resources and their experiences at all levels. And it was decided by the team to make the recommendation to adopt the Envision resource for the 2025-26 school year and beyond.
We have our cost estimates on the slides now. We are looking at a 6-year digital license for students and teachers at a total cost around $160,000. Unit writing, because we know this resource does sequence the skills, we want to make sure that we have common assessments to continue to monitor student progress towards the standards, and we want to make sure that we are at the appropriate level of rigor. And so we want to make sure that that pacing is cohesive, because we talk so much about Algebra 1, we want to do it really well for our students. The other aspect is professional learning through unit launches. We have done unit launches the past couple of curriculum cycles, and this is the ongoing embedded professional learning. So all the teachers of the course can be together and really talk through what level of rigor. We don't want to produce a curriculum and just be like, good luck. It is embedded in the way that we do business. And so our total cost impact would be $183,904.
What was the price of the resource that you didn't recommend? And how much better is the one you're recommending? And how should we think about the comparison?
We can pull the estimate for the other one. It's in our files. I did not print it for tonight. But you can speak to our experience with Envision if you would like.
Well, we're currently using Envision at the honors level for our honors geo, honors algebra 2. We're using a different resource, I am, for the standard level. And what we found is that the Envision materials were working very well from our teachers' standpoint, from our students' standpoint. I'm not getting to your question.
I understand you guys think it's the better resource. That's not the point of the question. The point of the question is how much better for how many dollars? And that's not in the materials.
So without that number in there, do you believe this is a substantially better resource than the other resource, or is it marginally better? Where are we at on that? And then we can give the board the dollar amounts for the other resource.
And perhaps what we can do, and to add to that, because I had a similar question, is in the discussions with other areas of mathematics, it seemed like it was a team effort to understand the progression through our mathematical curriculum. Maybe we can draw in that as well as to why they believe that resource was better as we ramp up into these classes and then move beyond these classes.
Sure, I would say we had robust conversation about the final twos resources, and in many ways they were a lot of great things about both of them. Envision carried the consensus based on a couple of things. I would say the rigor seemed to be something that was important. When we went down to kind of our final, it took us a couple of meetings to really nail things down. So we got really granular. We looked at, for this topic, this unit, how is it built? How is it developed? And with the team, again, including everyone from Algebra 1 up through Algebra 2 and some of us with calculus and all, the development of the concepts, if you think of something like factoring or solving quadratics, just the development that Envision went through seemed to be better. I mean, it developed the concept better. It seemed on the other resource, it seemed a little disjointed. Didn't seem to flow in a way that was logical or would seem to develop student understanding. So I would say the other resource had some advantages from some of the online kind of electronic world. Some teachers really enjoyed that part of it. But frankly, with a lot of our conversations about the learning of math, not that I'm old, but paper and pencil was something that kind of kept coming up, and dealing with Envision seemed to support that. There's no perfect resource, and we know that the magic is going to be taking this good resource and making it, come alive in the classroom. Because there's no resource you can just turn a page on and suddenly everyone knows math. So I would say the conversation was very robust in that area. I think and then there were those other little things, other little nudges. If you look at some of the really high quality, high achieving math districts, Envision is commonly used. And so that's at least a reassurance that, okay, there are people who are using this quite well. We have some experience with it. And our experience isn't perfect with it, and we know some of its flaws. But that, as a secondary idea, we certainly wanted to find the best resource to begin with. But as a secondary idea that, we at least have some institutional knowledge on this resource, how it works, and what we can do with it.
So would this be a resource we'd be using in the middle school for the middle school math as well? Because I know that was a big issue, was the alignment of middle school to high school. And I know we've made great strides. I know the middle school math scores from what I have heard, are pretty incredible. And so I'd like to hear more about those. But we're going to be using this resource. Are you, I'm looking to you because you're the guy you're the end user, really, in my mind. In your mind, is this the resource that is significantly better than the number 2 resource?
It's tough for me to say between the two. I mean, we would have been fine with both. That's my opinion. And I think that's echoed with, a lot of people would have echoed that in the meeting. And that's part of what made the conversation so difficult. And part of that reason is that both resources are miles better than what we're currently using in standard. They have mathematics in there that we can build off of. To me, it was to say that one was miles better than the other. I'm confident that either one we would have done fine. It's just a matter of what dials would we have had to turn. It would be different dials on resource A and different dials on resource B. To me, it's the unit launches, the team writing. This is the first time in many years that we had all 4 buildings together having substantive conversations about mathematics and even relating to what does it take to be high school ready. I mean, those are conversations, frankly, I don't really recall having had in years. And that's something that, the disconnect between the success at the middle school scores and the high school scores, that comes up. Why? We're all getting after it, but what is that disconnect? And so to me, the power of the process, having all 4 buildings in the room, writing, it's kind of similar to the course offerings book. When they sit in 2 different buildings, they're 2 different things. When it's a unified approach, it's a different animal. So that's kind of how I see the start of this. And it is a start because the highest achieving schools make the curriculum what it needs to be for their students. But they all start with a really solid resource. And this, I think either resource was solid. I think the one we picked is more verifiable. It's used by more schools that are successful. The other one just wasn't. It didn't really show up on a whole lot of lists on our research from the aspirational districts or the highest achieving, schools in the state. So.
One thing I just want to add to what Kevin was saying is that Envision has a lot to offer, which means if it has a lot to offer to the teachers and to the students, there's so much more flexibility with how we can meet the needs of our students. So all those other components, the magic is when we come together with this resource and the work that we do together, but having options, really great options that are going to support students in their learning is what really sold us on it.
I appreciate the passionate conversation, and it's probably deeper than what I was looking for in the answer around the relative price. The relative price is likely within 10%, right? We're not talking, we got a $183,000 price tag here. The other one wasn't 50 grand. So the reason that I'm pressing on this is we've gone through an awful lot of conversation about concepts like the allocation of scarce resources and academic ROI. And the relative price is what matters in these conversations. And so it's incumbent on the board to ask the question about the relative difference in price. I appreciate the effort that went into the recommendation of this specific thing and the passion that you guys have reflected in describing that. The question for the board is 183 the right price to pay? I don't know. Sounds like it. You guys are great advocates for this solution. If the other one's 50 grand, maybe that's the right one. So please accept the question in the spirit with which it was intended. It's not to say anything other than I can appreciate this recommendation and the work that you've put behind it.
We'll have those. So for the next couple, we'll make sure each one has that relative cost to it. But I think one of the other costs that we forget about is also the buy-in, because as you've seen together, when we have so many people in a room making a hard decision, if we are, you're right, it's probably let's say it's a 10% variance one way or the other. But to lose the support of educators in that process would be worth significant more if we said, well, they're relative, but we're going to go with a less expensive. We would lose, I think, so much in the work that has occurred by engaging so many people in this process. But I absolutely hear what you're saying. So we'll make sure each one of those are with the are to the board, so the board sees that relativity within that conversation. But I absolutely hear what you're saying. Thank you.
To that point, that's why I appreciate what Mr. Harrington said, that we got the 4 groups together. I can see that, and you've talked about that going on for years. I've been around for a lot of those years and watched those things and watched things come to the table and leave and just not do what they needed to do. And so from that standpoint, I can certainly appreciate the idea that if this is something we're on board with, and that's what I'm really looking for, is this is something our faculty, our end users are really on board with, as this is what they really want. And if this is what they really want as their resource, then that does factor into that marginal cost that we're talking about up here.
And I know, because I've heard it, that teachers are hearing that the board only cares about the money. And I'm just going to say that that is not true. And Mr. Lackner has taught me a lot. I hope I have had a little influence on him as well. But this is a different way of looking at how we have resources. And one of the things I've really taken seriously is that we keep going on. Every year, we're going to be back. We don't ever have to worry that next year there's going to be no public school, at least yet. But that is something that, as an educator, and I'm sorry, I think I have more years than you do, Mr. McNally.
Maybe a couple.
That we have continually thought that we can figure it out and we'll figure it out next year. And I think what I've learned as a board member is that we have to look at the resources because it's finite and the passion that goes with the teaching and the work that goes into making those decisions. And those two have to come together. We have to be partners. And so for all those folks who think the board only cares about finances, I can tell you that is not true of any of the people on the board, that they care very deeply that we are doing our best for kids and we are limited to what we can spend. So that's just my little.
I'm just going to add real quickly to that, because there was a question I had asked earlier that had nothing to do with money, about a different resource. And it goes right to what you said. It's that we need to be able to look and now I'm referencing something else. We need to be able to look and compare. That's what we have to do, is look and compare. And sometimes it is about money. Sometimes it is about where are we allocating our dollars. Sometimes it's about, is this really the best resource, or is it a preferred resource by some? And we need to know the whole story. Transparency is, I think it's a big issue. And I think this board always needs to, and whomever's on this board needs to, all the information, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so that we can make decisions and not just make decisions that are presented based upon what some group prefers.
Okay, great. Thank you, board. I think we're going to be moving on to science. So thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate it. Okay, so following the theme that we have done so far, let's go ahead and just reintroduce folks and introduce some new faces to the board, please.
Natalie Rosine, Science Department Chair at St. Charles North.
Matt Bowman, Science Department Chair at St. Charles East.
Tina King, I'm the Senior Director of Learning and Teaching.
Monica Bailey, you'll see me the next three, Associate Director of High School Curriculum.
Okay, welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Got the clicker. So about a year ago today, almost, I think it was April 15th, we came to you and had horrible news. So we are here today to come back and with a very different story, a very different tale related to science. So we're excited to be here. And my partner in crime here, Dr. Rosine, will go through the actual team and kind of how we get into that process. But I just wanted to lay the foundation of sort of how we got here across essentially 2 years of CAI work and almost a reformation of a team. Biology is the one course in our sequence that every single student has to take. And we wanted to leverage the work that our K-5 friends and our 6-8 friends have built upon that foundation, and then also keep all the doors we could possibly keep open for every single kid, regardless of pathway. So to that end, it was a very difficult conversation to have with a very eclectic group of individuals. We leveraged every possible person we could. We went all the way to the AP biology teachers. We actually pulled our 8th grade Infinity teacher. Our team was everything and anything that we could possibly have related to biology. In doing so, we started to collectively feel like what the team needed to find in a resource, and in comparing with our aspirational and comparative districts, found out very quickly there is no magical resource for science. I'm sure Mr. McNally can attest to that. Teaching biology is one of the most challenging subjects because there's no linear pathway. It's a zooming in and a zooming out. It's a macro and micro, and so it's a constant battle with individuals who are very passionate about different levels and different levels of organization. And to that end, we did not want to do a disservice for a kid that did want to become a doctor versus a kid that, you know, like Dr. Christian said, maybe was into welding. Regardless, all of those kids have to take biology. We wanted to keep in mind our CTE pathways and ensure that we set a foundation building upon K through 8, that our students could excel upward and choose those pathways and have that hands-on lab experience. And our team worked tirelessly to find the resource that would make that happen. We'll talk specifically about what resources we looked at, and I'm sure we have comparative notes relative to pricing, if you guys would be curious of that as well. I actually feel like we picked the one that's even better, so we'll get into that as well. And so we were trying to find this delicate balance between how do we prepare kids for the AP level classes, how do we prepare kids that just want to get their science credit, but then also the looming effort of what do we do now that the ACT is part of our science actual foundation. So there were 3 kind of umbrellas of us looking at this pathway and trying to figure out, okay, well, what resource is going to allow us to actually take those steps? I don't want to lie to you, the work is far from done. It really is. But we do believe, and we had a unanimous vote, I guess if you will say, with our team after a year of complete disagreements. So a lot has happened in just 12 months to kind of get us there, and I'll kind of hand it over to Dr. Rosine to sort of take us through that process.
Sure. So we would like to thank and recognize the Biology CAI team for their time and dedication to accomplishing our goals and the recommendation that we are bringing forward to you tonight. Like Matt mentioned, the people who are on the screen are gifted educators who work with every single level of learner from the Infinity program all the way up through our AP students, and that all of those that will help all of our students actually walk through all of the doors that are offered by the D303 high school experience. After, this long kind of arduous process, 5 different field tests and an incredible amount of deliberation and discussion, our biology CAI team unanimously actually selected and would like to recommend BSCS to the Board of Education as its instructional model to form that foundation for biology and science in D303. As the screen actually is telling you, BSCS is an anchored inquiry model. It draws on neuroscience and how the brain actually works for our learners that are moving through the high school experience to scaffold student learning in memorable and measurable ways, using the 5E model that allows our students to actually engage and explore with information, then be able to explain it, elaborate it, and then finally to be able to evaluate it. We believe that this recommendation will help support our teachers in not only aligning the next generation science standards, but also leveraging it along with the ACT and college and career readiness standards as well. Students in biology will engage in investigations within the following 4 areas throughout a school year that are listed on the slide down at the bottom. Each of these units, as the diagram up in the upper right shows you, is anchored with a phenomenon to begin that particular unit. And then as they progress through this, they will have essential foundational skills that are fostered and solidified with additional investigations, synthesis, and analysis, and then it culminates each time with a performance assessment to gauge growth in that knowledge and understanding. Given that this is a brand new curriculum, our baseline data will actually form that, and then we'll be able to measure growth as we kind of continue on with each unit and then from year to year as well. BSCS also invites and challenges our students to make meaning of their learning as they progress through this foundational course to a variety of D303 advanced placements and or capstone courses in the pathways that have been mentioned so far and that will be forthcoming in the APG. At this point in time, I would like to introduce Tina King, our Senior Director of Learning and Teaching, who will talk you through the financial footprint for our recommendation.
For our honors and honors biology and biology resource, we are recommending the purchase of a 6-year digital and print license for our students and our teachers. That came in at about $135,000. $100,000. And the other resource that we field tested, the Savas product, was $2,000 more. So that is the 2 cost estimates for both resources. So we actually came in under with this resource just costing a little bit less, but relatively in the same ballpark. The lab materials that we are recommending purchase of are a one-time cost for our teachers and students. Those lab materials will be purchased regardless of either resource. These are the rigorous lab experiences that we want our students to have access to. Those will include some general lab supplies, probes and sensor equipment, which need to be updated. We have not bought a biology resource or material since 2010, so we need some updating for our students to have access to the most rigorous experiences. Science and technology has changed. Think about what you had in your pocket in 2010. So our students, we need the probes, sensors, the 3D molecular kits for those units. And then in addition to those costs, we will have a unit writing team and also professional unit launches that are embedded professional learning. That learning will be supported by the consultants from Biological Sciences Curriculum Studies, which is aligned to our district professional learning, which is a curriculum-based professional learning experience where we will engage in the experiences and activities and experiments that students will use with our teachers first so that they can do those with our students next. So that you can see on the screen the total financial impact is $237,513. And I also can tell you for algebra, that resource was $203,000, so it was $20,000 more than the resource that they were recommending tonight. I want to let you know.
And I didn't mean it in that manner. Which one was the 20,000 more than the other?
As part of the CAA process, any resources we field test, we get an estimate for both resources and a quote for both resources. So we know prior to the field test the relative costs of both resources. So algebra team recommended the most reasonable resource, which was Envision. Just like the biology team is recommending the most reasonable resource, but that was not the reason it was chosen. The reason it was chosen because of an experience that we wanted our students to have, and materials and ease of instruction and instructional support that we want our teachers to have.
Thank you.
I have a question. What is the resource we use for AP Biology?
We use, currently, we
Campbell?
are using a Campbell So,
What edition?
I couldn't tell you. I do know that it is not a current edition, so it's probably at least 5 to 7 years.
The reason for my question, are we going to be coming back and looking at updating the AP biology curriculum or AP biology materials at some future point?
I have not heard from my group. I mean, if you want to address it, go ahead.
I think our first goal with guaranteed and viable curriculum is to work on the core. So as we work up biology, chemistry, and physics, then we will look at AP and electives as well.
All right. Thank you.
On the licensing fees, are these paid annually or are they paid upfront? So we have a 6-year license with a cost of $134. Is that amortized over 6 years, or is that
No, it's
one
paid
time?
up front to get the discount.
Last quick question. Last year, when you all came here, I was actually, I was impressed that you hadn't aligned on a resource. It really, to me, it told me you were being very thorough about this and you were fleshing out your differences as far as what you felt was the resource. So I guess my question is it this resource itself? Is it more of an alignment on the process, maybe a little bit of both that helped you to arrive at this decision?
I think it's both. Without a magical resource that anyone agrees with, and I have the benchmark districts and the aspirational districts, and in counting them, I think there's 14 different possible resources that are being utilized across those districts. We grew as a team in that year of struggling, of trying to figure out where were we weak and where did we actually need help. And I think that's what drove our process. Where did our students need to have support? What were we comfortable in providing for them on our own? And that kind of drove us in this direction. But through this entire process, even this year, I couldn't have told you where we were going to land until really the end. We kind of came together as a group. It really was kind of a evolution, if you will.
Yep.
Spoken like a true scientist.
That's true, yeah. Sorry. The mic makes me powerful. I'm sorry.
Board, anything else here?
I'll just say I have used the BSCS resource in the past, previous iterations of it, and I know it's a solid resource.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
We'll welcome our English team up here. Feel free to have a seat and introduce yourselves.
Okay, welcome everybody, and welcome back, a few of you. So we'll keep that same theme. Go ahead and reintroduce yourself, or introduce yourself, please.
Matt Jeffrey, Assistant Principal for Instructional Programs at St. Charles East.
And I'm Melinda Roberts, the Assistant Principal for Instructional Programs at St. Charles North.
Kara Drexler, English Department Chair at St. Charles East.
Matt Ruckold, English Chair at North.
Amanda Wojcik, Curriculum Coordinator with Learning and Teaching.
Monica Bailey, Associate Director of High School Curriculum.
Thank you all, and welcome.
So as we begin to talk about our work and experience with high school English CAI, a really important component has been the role that research has played and will continue to play in our work. Research is a piece that informs our literacy vision, which we expanded from a K-5 vision of effective literacy instruction to comprehensively reflect our system in terms of the literacy instruction for all students pre-K through 12. That was based upon the recent release of ISBE's Illinois Comprehensive Literacy Plan, which was released in January of 2024 as guidance for districts in improving literacy outcomes for all districts across the state. And that was a really essential tool, which is a compilation of many different meta-analyses that really inform the most evidence-based practices that we that we ensure align to both our instruction and the instructional resources that we are considering. It's also been a really important piece of our work as a CAI as we continue to engage in shared learning together and provide professional learning that ensures, again, alignment between the practices that are evidence-based and the curricular materials that we are using in our classrooms.
So we implemented Common Lit at English 9, 10, and 11 in our standard, in our honors, in our co-taught special ed, in our co-taught multilanguage, and in our in-program special ed courses. Common Lit provides us a comprehensive ELA curriculum. It helps include rigorous text sets, other instructional resources. It's allowed us to increase the rigor and the amount of reading in every course. It's made us common across the river, far more common than we've ever been. It's provided resources for teachers for quick checks, easy access to student progress data, which has allowed us to work in the PLC structure and give us teachers feedback far more frequently and allowing us to react to that. They provide us high-level thinking questions, vocabulary lessons, other supports that's enhanced the PLC process and our students' literacy experience.
So you heard earlier that each department was going to highlight a different kind of piece of the CAI process. And so we were going to highlight the development of leadership that happened during our CAI process. So we particularly wanted to highlight that although there's only a couple of us sitting up here, there really were a lot of people who became leaders in this work, and they're not all sitting up here with us. So on the next slide, you'll see that there were 28 people from both high schools representing all levels from 9 through 11, including special education teachers, multilingual teachers. We had a major shift in our practice of teaching English because of this resource, and so it really took everyone to work together to make this happen. It's really made me appreciate the honor that it is to work with the very highly educated, experienced, and passionate colleagues that I have on both sides of the river. So many people contributed so much heart and time and expertise and deep care for our students and their success in their literacy journeys as we were field testing this resource. And then also through having so many people involved in the literacy committee and in the CAI committee and in leading the unit launches, we've really learned that through having them lead that implementation, it's helped us ensure that everything is truly a guaranteed and viable curriculum, because it's not just one person saying this is what we're going to do. It's a team of people going to their teams of people, all supporting each other through that process. And then I'd like to just also sound a note of appreciation that the collaboration that's happened between teachers this year has been modeled by the collaboration of our leaders. I've really appreciated the commitment that I saw this year coming from district in terms of demonstrating trust in teacher expertise and in the open dialogue that we've had every week with the leadership here. So I think that that's really had a huge impact on the success of us implementing this new field-tested curriculum, just because we felt a new level of support this year. So as a result of all of these individuals that you see behind, or whatever screen you're looking at, to me it's behind you, and the work of all of the English teachers in both departments, we have, I believe, profoundly improved our instructional coherence from school to school and classroom to classroom, and we have based that on evidence-based practices. We're continuing to have those conversations, to have professional development around those evidence-based practices, and creating systems of support for all of our students.
After evaluating Common Lit, following a year-long field test, we really looked at it through 3 different lenses: text complexity, high-quality questions and tasks, and accessibility to all learners. And it overwhelmingly came out with extensive evidence in two of those areas, text complexity and high-quality tasks and questions, and sufficient evidence in terms of accessibility to all students. So you can see we are recommending a one-year digital license, not because we plan to come back next year with something new, but because there's very minimal cost savings to doing a longer-term license, and also it provides us the flexibility, if and when we need that, to make adjustments when that time is right. We've been also using Quill as a supplemental resource this year, along with our field test, and that's a really important resource in supplementing the grammar instruction in our English courses. And the novel purchases as part of our curriculum process ensures that all students at both high schools have access to the same full-length texts that serve as both foundational pieces of some of our units and also in others supplemental in terms of providing students choice in book clubs. We'll continue revising units through our unit writing process. You can see we do have 20 teachers involved in that, and this team really values as many voices around the table making those decisions, and so we do have a larger unit writing team. We'll need to make revisions this summer due to what we learned in the field test, as well as reflecting some of the adjustments and really enhancements that Common Lit has made to their units this year. Professional learning needs to be an ongoing piece, not just as part of our field test, because we know that high-quality instructional materials, while matched with high-quality professional learning, is what really produces increased student learning outcomes. So you can see a total financial impact of $85,600 for the Common Lit resource and the supplemental pieces involved.
Well, just as,
Board, let's open it up.
well, just as there's each of you have picked to focus on one part of the CAI in your focus, I've questioned each CAI team with a different part of the board's focus. So if you saw me thumbing through my notebook, I wasn't surfing except to look at the SAR. We have a goal as a board to have 65% of students, sorry, I don't have my glasses, let me go here. By 2025, to have 65% of our students ELA proficient at grade 11. How much will this effort that you've undertaken and the money that the board's about to spend in May impact that result?
That's measured by the ACT now, correct? So,
well, unfortunately here it's by SAT, so
right.
we have to bear that burden of conversion.
Right. So as you mentioned earlier, Mr. Lackner, next year will be the fourth different test these kids are taking in 4 years. Because 3 years ago was the SAT on paper. Last year was a digital SAT, which is completely different. ACT's changing next year. They're dropping science as an option. The schools are still going to give it, I don't doubt that, but the kids can sign up without science. And that test is transformed again. So our target's moving, as you mentioned, but it's hard to measure when the test is changing every year. But as I mentioned in the fall, since 2012, this is my fourth curriculum renewal in English, and I've been in a similar position that long. And this one far outpaces anything we've done before. We've moved to go common in 2012, and we kind of got, it was like hit or miss. It's never been to this level. The resources Common Lit came up, it's not perfect, there's no resource that's perfect. The teachers have made it, as Mr. Harrington mentioned, the teachers have made it. We filled the gaps, and you make it good. It is the best. With the rigorous text and the amount of reading that's increased, that's going to change the test scores. And so I'm confident it is the right choice, and the stuff that's in there and the materials they're providing to us. It's making our jobs easier as teachers because the materials are there. So it allows us to get into instructional processes instead of what are we going to teach. And the materials are really good, and they reflect ACT type things. So I think we're going to see an improvement despite the test changing every year.
And I'd also like to add that as part of the Common Lit 360 units, we also have the assessment series that provides 3 benchmarks across the school year. And so we've looked at our middle of the year data, and while that is based on scale scores, all of our, at 9-11, all of our schools are well above the national average, and at grades 9 and 10, our average scale score is within meeting grade level standard range, which raised from approaching standards at the beginning of the year to meeting grade level standards at mid-year. The other piece that I looked at very recently was our percentage of students that are meeting standards on the culminating tasks that we are using as part of the PLC process and that are part of the Common Lit curriculum as well. We consistently have between 80 and 88% of our students meeting standards in those culminating tasks in each unit of instruction over the year.
Okay, well, thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. Come on down. Well, welcome to the table. We're glad to have you here. If we could just do a quick, brief introduction, that'd be wonderful.
I'll start. Monica Bailey, Associate Director of High School Curriculum.
I'm Dan McFerrin. I'm one of the TOSAs for Learning and Teaching.
Mike Cernoni, Department Chair for Social Studies at St. Charles North.
Andy Earhart, Department Chair for Social Studies at St. Charles East. We'd offer you a 7th inning stretch, but hopefully we're closer to the 9th.
Bring it home, Andy.
Well, welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. We'll go ahead and kick it off.
All right, so as a lot of the departments kind of talked about some things, we want to kind of focus on some things that were unique to social studies and some aspects that we've been very fortunate to be a part of. You've heard unit launches being mentioned a lot here, so we'd like to talk specifically about that. We've had 4 of our courses go through unit launches, and they have been highly successful. I've been in the district for over 20 years and been through quite a few curriculum renewals, and by far these unit launches have been the most effective aspect of the curriculum process. I think the benefits of it is all teachers who are teaching that course are sitting around the table and talking about the curriculum and what they're planning on teaching, and that has never happened before. We've usually just rolled out curriculum, and over time things kind of just change. But the power of the people at the table that are sitting there talking about these are the assessments that we're going to give, these are the formatives, the summatives we're going to give, is highly beneficial. Another word that we've used a lot here is guaranteed viable curriculum. That doesn't happen unless you devote the time, the money, the effort to sit down at the table. So those are just some of the things that I think are highly beneficial when it comes to those unit launches.
One of the biggest components that social studies has found success with this year, and we look forward to further success, is the idea of both horizontal and vertical alignment of our curriculum. Horizontally speaking, we've done a great job of combining our world history and geography courses with our CWI, Contemporary World Issues courses, to meet in order to discuss writing skills in the curriculum and what they see as our best fit for students and how we can help students move the bar as fast as they can. Vertically, our plan for the future is to align not only 9 through 12, but also 6 through 12 in terms of our writing skills, in terms of rubrics, in terms of our alignment of our certain writing skills that are very particular to the social sciences. In fact, coming up next month on May 12th, we have kind of a one-day committee, or at least it's starting as a one-day committee that will be meeting with a combination of L&T, along with 6 through 12 social studies teachers to all gather and discuss a lot of those concepts together.
And one last thing we want to point out about the CAI process is there's been a lot of time for reflection and revision, which we know is important. So as these 4 courses have gone through the process, they at the end of the year now are sitting down together and taking a reflective look at what has worked, what hasn't worked, what can we change, and they're using, data from common assessments. They're looking at whether these things are actually targeting and measuring goals and standards that we've have identified. So again, that guaranteed and viable curriculum, is ensured by the people at the table there. And if things need to be changed, then they're doing those changes right then and there to be ready to roll out for the next year.
When it comes to progression, our CAI process is opening many doors for students, including just a variety of choices, so many different pathways that students could pursue with and through that rigorous coursework that a lot of our courses provide. In terms of our curriculum work, the best thing is, as Mike already mentioned, it has been ongoing throughout the entire year. The unit launches started in the summer even of '24, leading to the start of this school year, and have continued all the way through the entire year. So it's been a great opportunity for all of us to get together as a team and provide that cohesive team effort in doing what's best for our students. In terms of core content, this has helped us also to improve our elective and our AP offerings for students in regards to, we're seeing a lot of the benefits of that already in regards to enrollment in AP courses, helping to support those access to pathways for students, along with post-secondary opportunities. Our department prides itself in offering a robust option level of different AP level courses, along with standard level courses for students to take to meet both core and elective requirements for our students and opportunities for them. So we really pride ourselves in that.
And just to build off of that, as we were looking at our options when it comes to electives, as part of our curriculum work, we did look at some of those aspirational districts, looking at also what colleges, universities are offering as courses, just so that we are preparing our kids to go through whatever door that they would want to go through. And then, yep.
In terms of our last bullet point on the previous slide, the partnership, the best part about this is this has been a team effort, and you can see from the list of members who are responsible for this, a key word that we would use is it has been all about collaboration. We've been responsive to individual student needs, we've been responsive to building needs and course needs, and the work that we have done couldn't be done without the help and the expertise of all of the people you see listed here, along with, Mike and I did the math on this, and in one way, shape, or form, every single person in all of our departments have been affected by the rollout of these CAI launches and of these field test processes and all the work that we've done. So we really commend all of the members of our department for that. Our department works extremely closely with our ISCs. We're fortunate enough to have one ISC in each of the two high schools who is social studies based. So we've worked really closely with them. We work with our media specialists, our LRC directors, our PLC leaders, and we work extremely closely with L&T, specifically with Monica and Dan. We have a monthly standing meeting with all of us. That's where a lot of the behind the scenes work and collaborative efforts really come into play.
And just to add off of that as well, I think we can't discount the impact that it's had on our PLCs, right? We've made that a focus of our district, and they have been there along the way giving us feedback, and so it's embedded within that process as well. So when it comes to resource recommendations, again, I know the three previous departments have kind of talked about field testing, and we're just going to kind of support that idea as well. This has been an intentional design. This has been part of the PLC process. Every single person that has been a part of these honors classes had a say in what decisions were being made here. There's 3 honors level courses then these recommendations are coming from. Like I said, all the members who taught these courses did have a voice in the selection process, and it was pretty rigorous. Some of these courses have not had new resources for over 10 years, and I know history doesn't change, but standards do. And, just more recently, a few years ago, our Illinois state standards changed when it came to social studies. So, we need to update these resources to make sure that they are matching up with those standards. So these three sources that we are recommending here are anchored in the ISB standards, the instructional mandates that we also are required to teach. And they're part of the inquiry design model, which is part of our social studies curriculum overall. And then, again, field testing was a major part of this, and we had input from all teachers.
These recommendations for each honors level course represent both student print books and teacher print books, as well as digital licenses for the next 6 school years. Civics Honors is also recommending a supplemental resource for students, The Words We Live By, and Modern American History Honors is also recommending 2 supplementals for teachers only, For the Record, 8th edition, and then Voices of Freedom. Included in this total financial impact is included the professional learning, which will include unit writing as well as unit launches throughout the school year. As Mike and Andy alluded to, those unit launches really help ensure ongoing professional learning to make sure that we are supporting teachers and supporting students and creating that common learning experience across the district. The total financial impact will be $141,305.24.
Okay, board, let's open it up. Thank you for that.
I just want to say, I love that history doesn't change, but standards do. I'm 100% making that into a patch.
It looked like there were 3 courses reflected in the table. Does that mean that 3 years of the students' experience in high school will change with the adoption of these 3 sets of materials? Meaning, is that 9, 10, 11 grades that'll all be affected?
It's actually 9, 11, and 12.
9, 11, and 12.
9, 11, and 12, yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
And when do you think we can see you doing the 6 through 12? What's your thinking on that?
In terms of?
I think you talked about that you were looking forward to working with middle school teachers about
Yeah, I mean, we've been working with middle school teachers throughout this process. This isn't something that's just isolated for high school. Our curriculum is aligned 6 through 12, K through 12 actually. But in terms of the writing and the skills and the rubrics to make sure that those are more horizontally aligned and vertically aligned is, we're starting that process in 2 weeks, or May 12th, sorry. So, yeah, so that's gonna start, and those are some powerful conversations because we wanna make sure that we're speaking the same language when a kid talks about what a thesis is or a claim is, right? We don't want there to be 4 different ways that they're understanding that, so I think that's essential. Just building off of those foundational skills.
And similar to what some of the other teams have said as well, we want to make sure that we get all 4 schools in the room at the same time and that we are all having those similar conversations and that everyone leaves on the same page so we can deliver that same guaranteed viable curriculum for all of our students.
And we've come to this realization really through those unit launches that when we bring our middle school and high school teachers together all in the same room, having the conversations to launch the upcoming unit, that this is clearly an identified area where we can continue to grow and develop as a collective whole and doing that work together and really making sure that when we say, as they alluded to, when we say thesis or claim or evidence or reasoning, we're all meaning the same thing, so that then when we bring that to our students, it really does create that 6-12 progression that really supports them in their pathways and work.
And I'm sure you remember, we launched 7 curriculums in social studies this year. Yes. And so all of middle school, and so Dan and I were lucky enough to interact with all of them. So this is where we get this bird's eye view that we want to bring the teachers back together with. It's been exciting. All of our common assessments are reading and writing based, all argumentative writing or in reading secondary and primary sources. And more importantly, with UCR, relationship with our media specialists, database research, analyzing high-level articles. We're implementing right now in our U.S. history course with our standard level students, how do you access high-quality resources on a historical topic through a database, which is the first time I think we've done that.
So that makes me wonder how the APG, if I have the right acronym, aligns writing and data resources because you use that across your life, and in many different careers. So I don't know if that's something that a student needs to see. You need this ability, this skill to be successful.
We've definitely been talking about how to show that and the relevancy of the skills that we look at in our classes.
Okay, well, thank you all for being here. We appreciate it very much. And I think we have a few more slides to bring it all full circle.
He says, so tired. Just a few, and we'll wrap up. But as we close, we go back to our graphic here, the 4 visits that you've gotten tonight. I hope you've heard the hard work and dedication to the high school experience. I hope you hear the commitment of over 100 individuals that spent a lot of time inside and outside of their day contributing to this work, and the tremendous amount of support there is for the recommendations that we brought to you tonight. I do want to say just a really hearty thank you to everybody that was here and stuck around and has been committed to this work in more ways than we could possibly quantify for you tonight. So thank you.
As far as our timeline is concerned, we're really looking at a 3-year timeline for implementation, with this year being year 1, where we've done a lot of gap analysis work in many of the teams' tasks. You heard tonight that they did conduct some gap analysis, as well as the design of the academic program guide, and then also the development of the career clusters. And as Yvette said, that's something that we have some already established and are continuing to fortify that and develop those so that they can be available in the fall when we have the final product of the APG. For this fall, looking at having that final project or product and being able to share that with you and having it in place for students in November of 2025 so that they can do the course selections for the 26-27 school year using that tool. Also with next year, really incorporating, our hope is to incorporate and launch also the SchooLinks platform for all of our students 6 through 12. Again, really focusing in on grade 12 so that we can help them to catch up because they haven't had necessarily all of the access so that they can be ready for their post-secondary endeavors. And as we continue to strengthen the experiences of all of our students with the PACE framework and college and career readiness. So then by the fall of 2026, for the 26-27 school year, we would have full implementation of the components of the high school experience in place. As I close, this is a compilation of all of the costs, the financial impacts through each of the different presentations where there were recommendations made, with the final financial impact at the bottom of $812,922.81. I want to thank you very much, not only for your patience and enjoying this presentation with us, but I want to thank you especially for your insights and for your questions. I want to assure you that as we walk away, we will be investigating and getting the information that you requested, such as the relative pricing for the recommended resources, the vision work for time usage, as well as the military career exploration tools that are found within SchooLinks. And our goal will be to have that included in the board update on Friday. I also want to thank you for the insights that you gave to us to help us to continue to improve our processes. Some key takeaways that we have, you gave us insight on how we can provide information, sharing the information, presenting the information on expenses when we're making recommendations. Really helped us with understanding what it is that we need to make sure that we provide to you at the table. Certainly we can provide it on Friday, but certainly we would prefer to do that at the table, as well as providing us insight in how we can better establish, communicate, and measure our success criteria. So those messages were heard, as well as many others, but I do want to assure you that your insight was not lost on us this evening, so thank you.
I'm going to jump on the gratitude train. Gratitude for everyone for sticking out for 3 hours and 30 minutes. I sincerely appreciate it, the longest L&T meeting in a long, long time. But your work is impactful. Your work is game-changing. The high school experience is is so much more than even what is on these 82 slides. And there's so many little pieces we put in our pathway to excellence. It's our PLCs. It's our rigorous curriculum. It's the cell phone. It's all these little pieces this organization is putting in place to ensure that our kids have the best opportunity and our staff have the best opportunity to make the significant difference to make that pathways to excellence. It's all these little pieces. Sometimes it's really hard to quantify one thing. Will this curriculum impact this score here? It may. I think there's so many variables in education, it's always hard to say that. But when we do our best job is when we create a system that actually thrives for our students and staff. That's what gets me excited about this. And I totally agree with you. Together, we're better. Together, the board made us better tonight. Together, pushing us to think differently about how are we doing this work. But what I was so proud of as sitting here as the superintendent was hearing each of our colleagues come up and talk about that collaboration, those conversations, the hardest conversations or conversations that have not happened in years. That new curriculum is being adopted, first time in 10, 13, 14 years. Those are bricks in our pathway to what we're trying to achieve. And there's so many little pieces that we're putting in place. But it is this partnership with the board, our teachers, our administration, our families, and our students all doing this work together. But how we've organized it in the high school experience, I'm incredibly proud of. Incredibly proud of all four of those aspects coming together to do this work. Incredibly proud of our staff. D303, when people say what makes a difference, it's our people. It's our people. And over getting close to 3 years now, that's the difference maker for me. When people ask me, what's so special about D303, it's people. People coming out, committing their time and energy and focus to doing the right work for students and their colleagues. I have huge gratitude for all of our staff, our incredible board, for pushing, asking hard questions. That's how we're getting better. Board, back to you.
Well, that was great.
Yeah.
And thank you, Dr. Christensen, for recapping some of the questions that we had brought up as well. That's very nice. And I'll just echo very quickly that it is really nice to see faces up here that we don't often get an opportunity to do. I think this is a recent change that is really welcomed by a lot of the board members here, to see the folks that are actually owning the work and doing the work. So it's just great to see your faces and to put faces to the name for all the hard work that's going on. So thank you.
I think Dr. Gordon said it so eloquently, but we are very grateful for the work you do, the kids that you hold in front of you and support. Makes me get all choked up. At 9 o'clock at night, we're all exhausted. I don't have to wake up tomorrow and work with 150 kids, but he does, yeah. But
You're getting paid the big bucks down there now.
Yeah, oh, we get paid for this job? Yeah. But thank you so much for what you did and for allowing us the opportunity to ask you questions and to think. And it is the most important work that you're doing, and thank you so much.
Okay, that is not the end of the meeting. So, okay, so I think that brings us to a close for item 2A. That will move us to item 2B, resource recommendations, and thankfully the presentation was quite thorough in this discussion, so I suspect that this item will go a little bit faster than the last.
Could we spend about a half hour running through them again, please?
Yeah, we're good.
Please refer to slide 81.
Yeah, again, items 2B and 2C were very thoroughly explained throughout that last presentation, so I think we are Fair to move on to item 3, adjournment, and item 3A, future agenda items.
I'm struggling thinking at this point, let alone what our future agenda items is. We will bring back the information that Dr. Christensen alluded to. The next L&T meeting, we have another additional resource, I believe, that will come to you. But at this point,
Yes. Yes, we'll have a presentation on the health resource
There we
next
go.
time.
I knew there was-
Problem. It's late, word retrieval is hard. We'll also have I believe we'll have a presentation on Title I that we need to do annually, and that would take place next month as well.
The next time we come together for L&T, when you look at 81, 81 is going to go to action, slide 81, sorry, I'm looking at your table. Slide 81 is going to go to action. And the reason I asked the social studies team about the number of school years that were affected is when you look at that in a table, you see that every single core subject is engaging in change. When we have our conversation about the student achievement report, I think it's important for us to look at the school year of 25-26 very closely and look at, because change is hard and there's change in every one of the core subjects, looking at the performance of that particular group to ensure that the teachers that have done such a nice job talking about what change has to happen have the supports to ensure that the students that are going through that change in 25-26 are well supported. And so we're going to see that in the SAR report 2 years in arrears, right, when we start to see the tests, the board tests. I would ask the team to start thinking about how we talk about that particular group of students that start in the fall of 25 in the high schools for special attention.
So just for clarity's sake there, are you saying each individual resource recommendation for action individually or on the consent agenda? Just
No, I wasn't, Mr. Kuchert, I wasn't making a recommendation, just that only those, all of those will come for some action. It's just a whole lot of change at one time, and it's going to affect the freshmen in 25-26 the most because every one of their teachers will be teaching something new. And so I want the board and administration to look closely at the SAR reports and any of the test results for those students very closely, because I want to make sure the teachers have what they need to help those students be successful in face of all that change.
Understood, and I got that portion. I was just wondering if there was also a procedural recommendation for action, because I believe these items would go on consent agenda. Okay.
I was, just to tack on to Mr. Lackner's, I think we should treat the freshmen coming in as a cohort that gets reported. I think that would be, and again, from a measure for you, like on that piece of it, and the team getting them singled out as that, because we've done that for other significant cohorts. So it's a great point.
Okay, I believe that takes us to item 3B, adjournment at 9:06 p.m.